I'm Amy.
I'm Wendell.
And I'm Patrick.
And
This is
Yes,
But Why?
Podcast.
I can't imagine what it's going to be like having a 1-year-old, like, even at 6. Like, he is already so advanced compared to the other two, like, because there's like a 7-year difference between him and the others. And just because technology has advanced so much further. So I don't know what kind of teenager he's even going to be. Like, we may not even talk. We may just, like, send signals to each other through some weird fucking glass thing. And your 1-year-old, in another 6 years after that, will probably just be gas. He's just going to be a gaseous form. And
I hope not. His gas currently is very smelly. It would be bad. I don't want him to be just that.
Oh, futuristic fart jokes are the best.
It'd be awesome. Oh man, I bet you some like good astronomers have some sweet
fart jokes.
Yeah,
but theirs is like with numbers and shit. We wouldn't understand it. I took astronomy in college because I was like, I took astronomy in college because I love science and I loved the idea of astronomy. And I was like, ooh, space, that's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be like Captain Kirk. I'm gonna fucking like learn all that shit about like light years and da-da-da. That shit is the hardest fucking science there is.
It really is.
It combines every science and math in one big ball, and you're like, oh, it's not just fun to look at the stars. It's like really something happening there.
Yeah, a ridiculous amount of mystery,
and
the books are just like, maybe it's this, and you're like, what do you mean maybe?
Just what a wake up call for a kid who was doing really good in high school. Like I was like 16th in my class and like, you know, outstanding senior boy, and I come in, I'm like, I can do anything, I can control the world, woo! I take astronomy, I get a C, and I just go into a ball. I don't even understand what a C is at that point in my life.
Oh man, when I went to college and I first signed up for the science and then immediately went to the admissions office when I arrived and switched all to drama. And when you do that, they go from, so like, imagine them looking at a science major, oh, you're going to do so well in your life. And then I signed the paper to switch everything to drama, and then they're like, hi, how are you? We're going to put you in a science class. You know what science is, right? You're like, yeah, I just switched my major. And they're like, you're going to go in astronomy 101. That's all the science you have to take. Okay, well, I mean, I can take more. It's fine.
No.
Yeah.
You stay in the theater building and lose vitamin C or D because you don't go outside.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Stay with your friends and think about how you can change the world through dance.
Yeah. How's Shakespeare going to convince somebody again?
If we haven't learned then, we'll never learn today. The bard told us all back then how it should be.
Right?
Oh.
So you went to UT, huh?
I did. I went to UT.
And you got a theater major.
I was a theater major. I did not finish.
Oh, well, but still, what's the department like? I don't think I think most of the people that I know went to RTF.
I love certain teachers in the department. I think I think they're great people. I think it's an awful program for young people to go into, especially young people of color. It was very much, and it's not their fault. I don't blame them. It's just the way, you know, I've always said this, and it's a terrible thing. It's changing. But I think that theater and film and entertainment in general is one of the only mediums that we still allow blatant racism and sexism. And I'm not saying anything we don't understand.
No.
But as a person of color, it's like, I'll never play Macbeth. Obviously, I won't now anyway because I'm 43. But
I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like Macbeth could totally be 43.
Yeah, that's an old Gertrude though.
All right.
You know, like, or no, wait, I meant Hamlet. I mixed up my I could play Macbeth. Never mind. Anyway,
Hamlet is a weirder one to do, but you know.
I mixed up my plays. See how good that's why I quit theater school. Because I didn't need it.
Yeah. So the UT theater department didn't have much in the way
I was playing a lot of, security guards and police officers and just like the background, standing there, one line, what are you doing here? That kind of thing. And it was because I was darker than the other kids, and I got roles, which they didn't get because I was darker than they were, but it wasn't like a thing that they were pushing at the university, because the roles that the darker people were getting were not good roles. Right. It was like, I had a joke with 3 friends of mine that we needed to write a play called The Cop, His Sidekick, and Their Prostitute Friend, because that's all we ever got to play, was because my shorter Mexican friend played all the sidekicks. Like, he played Sancho Panza even in one play. And then the woman played a whore, like a flat out whore, in like two plays. And I was just like, this is what you're casting your your Mexicans as. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I understand. And the black people aren't even getting cast at all. Don't even start that. Yeah, like the two or three that we had in our class. However, I made great bonds there, and I have long-lasting friendships, and I would not give it up for the world. I'm glad I did it. I think I got some great advice from some teachers there. Some that sounds like dream killing, but really just reality that helped me. Like, I had a directing teacher who took me aside once, and he was just like, Chuy, you're a fantastic actor. You're really good at it. You're gonna be great one day. The problem is, you are not gonna get cast until you're about 40. He said, you have an old soul, and it shows in your acting, and your body and your face do not match what you can do at this point, like, or what you're doing. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. He said, however, you're a really good director too, and maybe you should focus on that for a while. And I listened to him, and I did, and I love directing. I think I like directing written plays more than anything in the world. I came into doing improv. Well, I've been doing improv forever, but essentially I do improv as a selfish thing to feed my acting bug, because I'm kind of hard to direct as a director. I'm very, very like, okay, whatever. I'll do that, even though I don't think that's the intention of the playwright, that kind of thing. And then I get into these things like where I'm like, and I try not to, and I know it's a bad thing. I know I'm bad at it. And so I take myself out of written theater, like out of scripted theater, and I do improv, because that's on me. If I fuck up on stage with you, I did it. Or I need to find a way to fix what happened with you, and we need to make it right for the audience. Sure. It's about entertainment for me. Yeah. And I feed my acting bug by doing that. And I have nobody to blame but myself if it fucks up.
You're so cognizant of this thing that like the controlling aspect, and to be honest, you saying it, like, I kind of realized that might be why I do it too. Because when I direct, I'm like I'm like in charge of everything and like control the whole situation. And then when I act, I want it to be more free. So even though I direct sketch, I don't love to act in sketch, because then it's more, I like to go into improv, and then it's like I'm free and easy, and my one job is to stop being the asshole I usually am, and to just fuck around, love everyone, and give them the fun time they want to have.
I honestly, you said something that hit me. See, this is what I was talking about, that thing that happens to me. Just from sentence to sentence. I forgot what I was going to say. That was important. Never mind.
No worries. Let's talk about the directing that you did. Did you, because you were at UT and you felt like there weren't opportunities for you, did you make those opportunities directing?
I did. There was a ragtag group of us that did a lot of theater in what was called the Lab Theater there. It's like this little, I don't think it exists anymore, but it was this little, should have been condemned building that we all got a key to. We found there was this key that gets passed from class to class, basically, student to student. We're not supposed to have this key, but it gets you into the Lab Theater at 3 a.m, and you can rehearse. So we would go there. Yeah, it's the greatest. We knew how to get into the booth, everything. We could have a fully realized play in there. Yeah. And so we were directing shit all the time. And they had a thing where we could showcase it, showcase our stuff, which was nice of them to do. They didn't understand how in the world it was so well rehearsed, because we were working on school all the time. But yeah, we did a lot of theater. And then the thing that really got me into it in the community was, because I eventually just said, fuck this, I'm in debt. I do have a full ride at school. That's the shitty thing, is I had a full ride at UT, and I didn't complete it because I got such a bad taste in my mouth
Yeah.
about school. I just quit, and I decided to start doing it professionally, and I've been doing it ever since.
You know, you
And
don't
I'm
have to
very-
do stuff for free just
Right.
because they gave it to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like there's a lot of that in this world where
Yeah.
people are like,
You
but
feel
they gave you
beholden.
this opportunity, and you're like, it's kind of a backhanded opportunity.
How about
don't
I
you think?
fucking earn this opportunity by being like really good at school?
Yeah, or,
You know what I mean?
and
then,
also maybe the school, maybe they should only bite off as much as they can chew. If they want 6 actors that can fit these kinds of plays, why don't
Pick
you
those.
cast them?
Yeah.
Put them in the thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Don't pull me in and then not give me the education. I
Yeah.
totally understand what you're
Yeah.
saying in that way, especially too because
This
like
is a bad fit.
when we've been, I don't know, you've gone to the theaters, the improv theaters in town, and I know that each one of the improv theaters is just so caring when it
Yeah.
comes to thinking about each person trying to find their own like spot. And even though it's nobody's job to make anybody's pathway, there's so many opportunities at so many different places where it's like, well, maybe you want to be in this kind of show, audition here. Maybe you want to be in this kind of show, audition here. And it sort of gives an opportunity in a larger sense. And it's always sad, I think, when like an academic institution that's held so high, because like I applied to go to grad school there for directing, and I'm kind of glad that I
It's a
didn't
good
go.
thing you didn't.
Yeah.
Honestly, you would have been well taken care of. What year would this have been? Probably a while ago.
I mean,
Like around
it was a year. Let's see.
2000,
I graduated
2002.
college in 2000, but I don't think I was like looking to go to grad school until like 2002.
So at that point, the grad school was still doing very well.
Yeah.
It was now the grad program, the undergrad program, the BFA acting program doesn't exist
Oh.
at all. They focused more on their youth and education programs, which is a good thing, you know. But they're very good at theater for youth.
Sure.
Extremely good. Probably one of the best in the nation. Everything else, forget it. Don't even go there.
What do you mean for the youth? They
Theater
do like
for youth,
kids
like
programs
children's
and
plays.
stuff?
Yeah, they teach engaging children, educating children through theater, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Like
just-
at
just-
UT. Oh, I just don't know much about the
Just
program.
like any play you see, like in the daytime with kids watching that kind of stuff,
UT's doing that
or
kind of
classroom stuff, like dealing with kids in the class and getting them playing games and that, you know.
Is there a program where they're teaching students to be the people that do that?
Just a theater education program at UT. Like if
Oh,
you
and
go
it's
into
like a
that
regular
track,
BA?
if you go, it's a BA theater studies is what it's called, or it used to
interesting.
be. I don't know what it's called now.
Sure.
It was a BFA theater studies. It wasn't a BA even. It was a BFA theater studies. So it was a pretty specialized degree.
Yeah.
And you could teach anywhere in Texas. It gives you your certificate and all that. You do the student teaching and all that, but you have a focus on theater.
Huh.
So yeah, it's a good program for that.
Interesting.
For what I needed, not
No.
necessarily. I wanted to be a star.
So
you know?
when you left, what was your goal? What were you like, I'm going to go do blank?
I've always been very pragmatic. So I met my wife when I was 15. She was 16. And the two of us were very stubborn people, and we decided that we're never going to divorce. Because we're children of divorce. You know, especially if we have children, we want to keep together no matter what. So when I say that, I've always had a plan. So my plan basically was, because my wife was, she was doing well. She was working for IBM at the time. So I had money. We were okay, you know. And so I just kind of said, forget it. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to go out and start directing. And Frontera Fest was a big deal. It was good to help me get going. I feel like I'm not answering your initial question.
You're fine.
Okay.
Go with what you're saying. Feel free.
But
about
I've always
Frontera
had a plan for things.
Plan.
So my plan when I was very young was like, I'm going to get married, move to Austin with my wife, become a theater teacher, and do theater at night. And that's what I'm going to do. And I would tell like if an army recruiter stopped me or something, it's always the same thing. Like, dude, wasting your breath. I'm not going in the army. I've got a plan. And so I always had a plan about this too, you know. Unfortunately, you know, plans change. And so but I haven't so with my wife, but you know, there's a certain stubbornness you need in this field, in the field of entertainment and art. And I think I have that stubbornness. And so I think I'm answering the question by saying I'm a stubborn person, and that's why I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
Is that it? Was that the initial question?
Well, we were talking about when you got out of UT.
Oh, right. What?
You're moving forward. Though I do love the idea that where you got, and believe me, I'm all about rabbit holes. No matter where we go,
I'm bad at it though.
It's exactly where I want to be. No worries. This is as free form as it could be.
Sweet.
So to touch on, I was like, I know where we were, but let's touch on what you're talking about, which is the idea of stubbornness. I think that's so important to recognize.
Yeah.
And also, you said you're 43, I'm 40, so we're pretty much the same generation, and I feel good about that because sometimes when I'm talking to people of different age groups, I feel like if I'm older, then I'm talking to them
down.
Let me explain about the world. But if I talk to people that are older, then I'm all like, I get it. So like,
I'm so cool.
We're
I have
contemporaries.
Okay, as a 43-year-old, I'll admit to you that lately I've had this pretty cool thing happening to me. Where I've had a rebirth, kind of like I'm not having a midlife crisis. It's more like a midlife rebirth. But I feel healthier than I ever have in my life, and I'm like, I've made like 30-something-year-old friends, like all 30, like at 30, maybe a little younger even. And I'm just like, love me! Hey, I'm cool! And they do. And they're so nice. And a lot of them are, most of them are improvisers, obviously. But they've embraced me as this. And when you talk about talking down to them or like giving them advice, these guys want it a lot of times, which is kind of cool. I'm kind of their dad in a way. they're like, I'm the dad of the group. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, where are we going? Come on. Let's go to brunch. All right. Everybody needs to make their order. You're doing great. Everybody's very special here. But I love it because they're so welcoming and inviting, and I didn't have that in the improv community when I was younger. How long have you been in Austin?
I've been in Austin for 9 years now. Okay. So not too long. I've
been off and on since 93. And I came from 93 to 2003. When I left in 2003, there were probably about 5 troops in town. Nobody was really doing improv. It had kind of gotten killed here because of a few people. Some bad people who ran it differently. Back then, it was all like people were doing it here to get somewhere else. Sure. It was either Chicago, New York, LA. Actually, it's mostly Chicago, LA. I still have a ton of friends in Chicago and LA that are working and doing well, but they left. All of the real super talent took off. Now people want to stay. Yeah, and it's interesting to me because I came back 10 years later or 7 years later. I come back. There's 40 troops, and now today, you and I could probably talk about it, but I would wager it's near 200 troops in this city.
Oh yeah.
If not more.
Oh, well, there's always a margin of 20
of error.
That are
That's
in and out starting today. Number. Just right now, 3 improv troops started.
Yes, they did. We just started a duo. That's my biggest problem lately is I've been starting duos. You just keep doing it. I really am. I've got 4 duos now.
You should just get your own duo show and it's just you and other people.
I did that once. At the free fringe at the Hideout, it was the 4x2 because they used to do this thing called the 4x2, which was 4 duos too. Yeah. So what I did is I just took a name from a hat and I put up that person on stage, and I was like, because my goal is to play with everybody in the world, at one point. So I was like, well, this is a good start, and so I brought someone up. I was like, well, what do you feel like doing? We did it. Go sit back down. Now your turn. Now you play.
That's so awesome.
It's time for your 4x2. You know,
there was a guy that I knew that was in the early TNM quotient when it was over on Rosewood when I first started. Because when I moved to town, it was just the birth of that. Okay. I met Chris True somewhere and then joined him in his merry band at the time. Right. So I didn't know the world. I didn't know any of the drama, nothing at all. Right. I just swing in, join a theater, and I'm like, great. So there's this one guy that was there, and his name was Tej, and he was with us for maybe the first 3 years. He took all the classes with us and did all the things and was always part of the community. And when he moved away, he graduated UT. He was a science guy or whatever, but he did improv with us. And when he was leaving to go work somewhere and get an internship, we did this show called Tej Fest where everyone signed up to do one scene with him as a goodbye. And so it was everyone did one scene with him throughout the night, and it was this big goodbye party.
That's
and I'm
beautiful.
Always suggesting that for when people
I would
move
love it.
away.
That'd
I'm
be amazing.
Let's do that.
And you know what sucks is what's great about now is that people do that kind of thing in this city, improv wise. People actually like each other. In the day, you would never see that happen, around 2000 or whatever that I'm talking about,
interesting
98 to 2000-ish.
So did you leave because it was sort of there was bad blood in the town?
I left town because my wife wanted to live closer to family.
Right on.
And so we moved to San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a 6-month-old at the time, our eldest.
Right.
We built a house there in town that was in Round Rock, the exact same floor plan, $50,000 more expensive. So we built it in San Antonio, like a mile from my father and my stepmother. And the boys, the two older boys, kind of grew up in San Antonio. They remember a lot of San Antonio. And even though they've now been here probably almost as long as they were in San Antonio,
sure,
they're becoming Austinites slowly but surely. Like, I'm taking my kid to Snap Judgment tomorrow night, an NPR show that they're very, very granola. No, they're actually not. They're fun-loving guys, but they're we went and saw Toto. The other night.
Awesome.
And unironically, they wanted to go see Toto. Like,
sure.
They were like, let's go to... I thought it was a fucking terrible concert. Like, I really wanted Toto to be great. They had these... When they were great, they were amazing. When they were terrible, they were fucking just terrible.
Sure.
Long, droning, like, jam bandy kind of stuff. And I was like, this is not the Toto I came to see. But my kids said it was the best concert they've ever been to.
How many concerts have they been to?
My middle one has been to quite a few, probably about 10.
Oh, okay. I was going to be like, there's not much to compare to. They're like this and the Wiggles. And you're like, okay, listen.
Yeah, they've seen some hardcore. They've seen The Sword on New Year's Eve at Emos. Like, that's the kind of shit I've taken them to. Yeah, and my boys are like, they're going. But it's an issue for me, too. I worry that I'm doing them a disservice because... Austin, I always said I never wanted to raise a kid in Austin. Because... Me too. Because it's... Yeah, well you know what you did. Shame, I know your name.
At least I'm aware of my mistakes, is all I'm saying.
Right. Happy accidents, not mistakes. Happy accidents. But growing up in Austin, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in San Antonio. But... it seems like there's way too many distractions for kids, like teenagers, and the distraction is that they need to be older quicker, because there's older kids here that they probably meet college kids all the time because they're on university and stuff, and the city's just so welcoming and inviting. I mean, my kids could probably walk into a bar here and not get carded, and it wouldn't even be an issue because it's just that kind of vibe. It's like, you're good, like, you're not gonna fuck us over, man. Like, I was just in Portland.
I don't know.
I was just in Portland yesterday, and the give a shit attitude there is so great. Just like nobody gives a shit. Everybody's just like.
I thought you meant that they totally give a shit.
No. Well, they give a shit, but they don't give a shit either. You know what I mean? Like they give a shit when they have to, and then but otherwise they like I was telling my friend, I was like, it's so annoying how everybody looks like they just got out of bed and they're so cool. Like they just woke up, threw on the dirty shirt they had, some cutoffs that are, terrible, like wrong links, and some terrible Adidas, and they walk out with a dumb hat on and they look great. I'm like, you asshole. I work so hard to look decent when I walk out of the house, and they just throw it together. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, how old is this
thing.
Guy you're looking at? Is he 21? It's hard. When you're some of them 30, in their early 20s, you just can't do it. Yeah, it's true.
I'm like, what the hell? Where'd you get a beard? How do you get a beard? I can't even grow a beard. It's terrible.
My husband, too. I'm always like, could you grow a mustache?
Nope.
And he's like, no, I can't. And then I found a photo of him, with some scruff. And I was like, that's a mustache. And he was like, I'm not putting that disgusting thing on my face and then working. And I was like, fine, whatever.
It's nasty.
I guess it's not 1974. Whatever.
Mine is this horrible chin strap that comes under here. This is actually 3 days growth, and there's almost nothing here for your listeners. There's a faint shadow of a glisten of brown, but there's nothing here at all, and I'll just look Amish if I let it go.
Oh yeah.
But it won't even grow that far. It just goes in straight lines. Like imagine somebody who has hair plugs, but it's on their under chin. It's the worst ever. It's fucking a nightmare.
It goes straight.
Straight, like hair. Like just hair coming out, like individual pieces. It does not curl beautifully or fluff any of that shit.
It's like cult leader or record store owner. Like that's pretty much the only two looks.
It's like somebody took a straightener and just the tiniest straightener and straightened every hair on my chin.
This sounds amazing.
It's awful.
There's a part of me that really wants to.
I had to grow it out for about 6 weeks once for a role, and it didn't even read from the fucking stage. I don't know why I did. I was directing the show. It was my own fault. I should have just gone clean shaven, but I was trying to look. I had to be this tough character. I'll never direct and act in something, by the way, at the same time.
It's so hard
to
do that. It's so hard to do that, honestly. Yeah. Because it's a split focus. And even like what we were talking about earlier, where it's like when you're directing, you kind of have this like control.
Right.
I can make it the way I want
I'm a little more collaborative than that.
Sure.
But here's the thing.
I'm very controlling.
Here's the thing. I seem collaborative. I feel like I've done a good job of being able to get out of people what I need and make them feel like they did it all themselves.
Oh, well,
like,
sure.
I like to feel like I help, and I do, but I really like them to feel like they collaborated on something.
Oh, yeah.
But if I have to control it, I will. I mean, I'm like you too in that like, but I have a certain capacity for. Like my control level gets to a certain point and then it explodes. Yeah. Like I can hold it back because just from doing it for so long. But it was an issue early in my life. I was a dictator, like you're talking about that. Like mine, it's all mine. I can do it. It's my vision. Listen to me. And I just realized it's not as much fun to do that.
Sure.
Collaboration is so much more fun, and people are so much more interesting, and people can fuck up something really easily. I think that's pretty apparent in the world that we live in now. Mm-hmm. But people are also beautiful inherently, and if you let them make their fuck ups and you're there to learn from those fuck ups, that's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. You know? And I think I don't know why I'm getting so like NPR-ish and shit right now, but
do it.
But you know, the thing about art is it reaches people, and I've got a real Alec Baldwin thing going here. Anyway, so I trail off from an interesting thought because I get too uncomfortable when I talk seriously.
No, I mean, you know,
essentially, people are beautiful. It's a great thing, and I think if people see mistakes in art, that's not a bad thing. That's why I like improv, because it's got the guts right there on stage. You can see everything.
Yeah,
all the wires, you know, are showing, and that's kind of a cool thing.
I'm as far as like what you're talking about, I'm very pro collaboration. Of course, I do the improv and whatnot. And when I'm my main thing that I work on as a director is the Neighborhood Sketch Comedy Show, which is a show that I've been the main director for the entire time, and so the other people go in and out. And so I have the control that I feel over that is sort of the ownership of it, where I'm like, okay, but we're going to make sure that what we put up on stage are good, the best sketches they could be.
Sketch is different.
You know, yeah.
Sketch is different. I completely understand what you're saying, because sketch is all about timing. You've got to hit that punchline. If you don't hit that punchline, the rest of the sketch is shit.
Yeah.
I mean, like, usually, and that's what sucks about a lot of sketch lately, like the way sketch has kind of changed over time. Sketch used to take time and build, and it had several jokes throughout. Now sketch is based on a premise, and that premise gets beat to the ground, I think.
Sure.
I think that's the problem you have with like an SNL, and that is they don't know when to end the damn thing because they have a time limit, you know. And I think that's what we worry about too much, maybe in live sketch also. I hate directing live sketch, by the way. I don't like doing it. I'll do it, but it's like with just I'm screaming inside the whole time. I hate it so much.
Yeah,
because
I've had to open myself to that.
Oh, it's so fucking annoying sometimes the way it works out. But you know, having to hit that timing, having to hit that place, having to be there. You know, the costume changes. Everything is you have to control it. Because if somebody's not in their spot, it's going to fuck the entire flow of the show.
Yeah.
Now, I know the same thing is also true for regular theater, but it's a little different. There's very few quick changes that are 10 seconds in Tennessee Williams.
Right.
You know, it doesn't happen. It's a sketch thing. Like, yeah, I kind of like acting in sketch. I don't really feel like you act in sketch much.
Sure.
I think I don't know. Character sketch is so hard for me sometimes, you know, because you don't know that character well enough, and you've got such a short amount of time to get to know the character and get the joke about the character. And then and again, traps that SNL has fallen into, where they just bring the character back and put him in a different situation, character in different same jokes.
Well, but you know what? You know why I think they do that, honestly? Because like when I'm doing the Neighborhood, I'm taking weeks to get through drafts and whatnot, which are sometimes massaged out, and sometimes they are just hand it to me. Like, there's people who do 3-4 drafts and send me stuff during the week. I send them notes. They do another draft. No big deal.
Right.
But then sometimes it's like, let's sit down and talk about this in the room while people read it. Mm-hmm. And then after we talk about it, you sit in the corner and like finish writing it. Like, and that needs to happen sometimes, you know, for things to happen. It ebbs and flows in different ways.
The time pinch is all of it. It's absolutely all of it.
But SNL's only got a week. Yeah.
Have you ever worked with the Story Wranglers here in town? The Paramount Story Wranglers? Do you know the program?
I'm aware of them, but I don't think I've ever worked with them.
Mitch Harris and Ammon Taylor run it, but it's a kids program. Mm-hmm. But essentially, what they do is they go in and they do classes like 2nd through 4th graders, I think. Mm-hmm. I perform in it, so I don't know the full teaching part of it. But they go in for a few weeks and they write stories with these kids. They teach them story building skills through a little bit of improv and stuff, but mostly through writing. And then we take what they've written and we make them into tiny sketches for them. Mm-hmm. We like improv it out, so they get to stand up and say, "I wrote this, and this is my sketch," and we do it. But the fever and manic like costume change, and that shit's not even hard changes. It's like putting on a headband and throwing on a t-shirt and you're good to go. Bam. But it's such quick changes because they're kids. You cannot sleep on kids. They will not. You gotta hold their attention. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is that like I love that whole vibe about it. But they have a week to do. I mean, they have this other time to write the actual story, but we have a week, like not even a week, probably more like a day and a half to make what is going to be the sketch. And then we rehearse it. If there's dancing, if there's whatever. So yeah, I get that there's a time pinch for them. Yeah. And that's why they go, fuck it, let's do another Stewart, you know, for Mad TV or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
or the fact that like maybe the first sketch they wrote and they were like, this is crap. And then the audience likes it and they're like, maybe it's not crap. Like, okay, who knew? Yeah. See, I'm always trying to get, I've always been trying to get the neighborhood people to bring back characters, and they never do. They just have, like, a new idea for everything. Like, it's like, okay, next month, let's do a brand new thing. Like, I'm like, I have a backlog of hundreds of sketches of characters, and so we could use any of these. We could bring any of them back.
Yeah, flesh them out.
Nobody ever wants to. It's so interesting how that is.
1 or 2 is not a bad thing. It's when it gets to be, like, the movie deal and all that, and I'm like, oh, come on. We really need a movie? And hardly any of those succeed.
Yeah, but, you know, hey, man. You got to keep your business.
Make that money.
You got to keep it flowing.
I mean, I did.
If I were
last
that guy,
time I was in New
movies.
York, I did see Tracy Jordan riding around in a Lamborghini, so.
Right? Can't be too
Pay
bad.
for that somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you... So you left Austin in 2003, and then you said you came back 10 years later, 2013. 7 years later, 2010. There's a lot more improv going on. There's a couple theaters happening.
Yeah.
When you came back, how did you get yourself back in? Like, where did you start?
You know, I had every intention of getting back in because I was still doing improv in San Antonio with the Oxymorons down there for that amount of time. Oxymorons, which is a troupe that still kind of exists. We're still around, but that they've been together since the 80s. Like, that troupe has been around since probably like the Groundlings started. And it's very, very under the radar, but a short form troupe. We've been playing for years in San Antonio. It's great.
Awesome.
Anyway, I had every intention of getting back. So David Lampy is a good friend of mine. I've known David Lampy as long as I've known my wife, like since I was 15 years old. I used to go see him perform in San Antonio. And so he knew I was moving back, and he was like, hey, buddy, if you know Lampy, I'm talking exactly like him. Hey, buddy, do you want to do some improv? There's this thing called Maestro I could get you signed up for. And I was like, well, what is it? And he's like, it's short form, nothing you can't handle. You got it. And I did a Maestro, and I won my first Maestro, of course, like people do. I don't know if it was set up or if I was just that good that night. No, but that kind of got my name out there again. Like that one night even, people were like, who the hell is this guy? And they didn't realize that I'd been doing it a long time. And I'm celebrating 28 years in front of audiences this year. You know, it's a long time doing this shit. And that's how I got back in. And then slowly but surely, people started asking me to do things. They knew I was available. Lampy and I started Zarzamora, which got a little more visibility, you know, that kind of thing. I did a few main stages and stuff, just getting back into it, you know. And it's a different world for me now here than it was then, for sure. You know, like we would play the Velveeta Room with Ray Pruitt's 4th grade class back in the day, which was like a remainder troupe of Monk's Night Out, kind of, from back in the day. But we would play 4 shows a night at the Velveeta Room every weekend, just trying to kill it to drunk crowds, and really struggling, like all of us, just trying to get people that gave a shit about improv to come in. We struggled so hard to get listed as just theater in the fucking Chronicle and not comedy. Even somebody as saintly as Brenner is now, who was there then, didn't want us in that, didn't put us there, and now he's totally changed his tune on that, obviously, and done thousands of things to make up for it. Like, he's got no cross to bear at all. He's a god for us. He's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different world. Everybody's so nice now, and I know there's cattiness. There's always going to be that, but those people don't tend to last in this community. It seems like if you're not a good person, if you're not nice to people, and you're like kind of a shit and wanting to be like, even if you have like delusions of grandeur or even aspirations that are like ridiculous in your head, people are like, dude, calm down. We're doing some good stuff here.
Yeah.
It's very much like a side-eye thing. Like, everybody keeps their eye on that person, then eventually they just kind of go away.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're kicked out. Well, that is happening lately with some issues that some accusations and stuff that, have happened. Sure. Obviously, people are saying now you can't be here, which is good.
Yeah.
A good thing. But in most cases, I think. And but other than that, it's a very welcoming environment, and it's totally not what it was before. I remember back in the day, I tried to get the 3 places that were doing theater or improv to meet and do a jam at the Velveeta Room. Like, they didn't even know what that was. I was like, let's do it like an all-star jam. You send 2 people, you send 2 people, you send 2 people, and we'll do games. And we'll perform for an audience in our place at Velveeta Room. They'll see you guys. We'll pump up your shows. You can show them what you do. You can say when you're performing. And then we'll go to your place the next week and the next month. And we'll do it at your place. And then we'll go to your place and we'll do it at your place. So we can share the audience.
Yeah.
Fuck you. No fucking way. I got one together. And when I did get it together, the people were real pissy to be there. Everybody hated each other back then. And it all had to do with this one guy, Mark Pruder, who, and I'll say his fucking name, he's a piece of shit.
Okay.
I can't stand the guy.
Is he still around?
He's in Missouri or something now. He showed up for one of the Out of Bounds a couple years ago, like the Monk's Night Out reunion, and just came to town, pissed everybody off again and left. Piece of shit again. But he just played everybody against each other so awfully, and we as individuals didn't talk to each other. It was just like the theater kind of, or the people who ran the troops kind of talked, and that was it. And they didn't like each other much, rightfully so, because nobody should like Mark Pruder or anybody that works for him. Yeah. If you're from the outside of it and you're not talking to the people who are inside of working for Mark Pruder, they hate him just as much as the people from the outside do. He's the worst person in the world. But he made this caustic environment here, where it was all about getting to LA and HBO and this and that, and not about cultivating anything successful here. Whereas I think the people, when they opened the Hideout at around that time, they were starting that idea. And I give Shayna and oh God, are you kidding me, Sean, full credit for helping that, and people like Jeremy Lamb, and like these are people that I started with here actually. Like Shayna, Jeremy, and I were in our first improv troupe together in town. Like Shayna had worked at Dad's Garage, and I'd been doing some stuff in San Antonio when I was a kid. But Jeremy, of course, at Westwood at his high school. Yeah. But we all knew each other back then, so it's kind of cool now to see each other around. Jeremy and I did the marathon together a couple of years ago with his wife, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Those bonds, I can still, I don't want to say that it's a prickliness, but there's definitely something that we, like all of us from back then, should get together and kind of process and talk about, because I think it'd be good for a lot of us, because there's some real bad feelings from back then that maybe aren't, not between Jeremy and Shayna and I. I'm not saying that at all. We're great friends. I work for Shayna all the time. I'm in the Known Wizards. Jeremy and I, we saw each other at Cold Town for the Excused Absence Festival, which was a teenage festival. My kids and my wife played with me, and then Jeremy's kids played with him. It's just
That's fun.
Such a cool event. I can't say enough about that. Chris and Hen and then put that together. It was great.
Yeah, but going through something like that, like when there's a negative past that you all went through, sometimes, I mean, aren't half of the, like, honestly, I feel like that's the beginning of the half of horror movies, right? Like, it's a group of friends who are, like, R.L. Stine wrote about 40 of those, where it was like a group of friends were like, hey, remember high school and how hard it was? Yeah, it was super hard. You want to go to this cabin and talk about it? Yeah, let's talk about it. And then they're all dead somehow by the end. And it's like, turned out the thing that was bad about high school was this guy that was super murderous. Weird.
We didn't know.
Oh, man. Turns out our best friend was a murderer. We're dead now.
We heard his parents died. We just didn't know he wanted revenge.
Yeah, so I understand.
You can go Batman, or you can go.
I understand your life.
Batman, or the other way with R.L. Stine.
Yeah, absolutely. Did something horrible happen? I get it. Now you're a vigilante.
Now you're a murderer, or you're a vigilante. Whatever.
Yeah, it's fine.
Pick a side.
Yeah.
You gotta have one of them.
Yeah.
You can't just be a normal human after that.
Nope.
Like there's scars. There's definite scars. And he opened up some of those scars when he came back to town. Like, he did this whole thing where he had myself and another guy step forward in the monks reunion, and he pointed out that we were never truly members.
Great.
But we were very supportive and always there. So we were invited to play tonight, and I was like,
oh man,
motherfucker, I played with your troupe for years when they didn't want to play. Like, I was asked by one of the other monks, like, we did a whole, like, round table thing at my house, and we were talking about what your place was with the troupe back then, and we got around to me, and I was pissed off, because I had gotten some people, this had happened already, and some other people had, like, mentioned they didn't understand why I was performing. I was like, you fucking asshole, you were gone from the troupe by the time I started playing. That's why I'm playing. It came to me, and I was like, well, what I was the one who did the shows when you fuckers didn't think this thing was important enough to you. When the Velveeta room on a Friday and Saturday night was not as important to you, I was there playing. I was performing. I was building that audience. That's what my part in the troupe was.
Yeah.
And they were all like, yeah, you were there a lot. I forget how much you were there. I was like, yeah, I performed with y'all. That's why we talk all the time. That's why we're friends.
Yeah.
Remember that? But it's that Mark thing. It was his separation, his idea of, like, everybody had to be in a hierarchy. Like, there was the A team, and then there was the B team, the whole Chicago idea of things, like, where it's like these degrees of
worthiness.
Yeah, worthiness.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays it's more like, well, I'm in class, I'm learning, I'm doing better. You
know what, though? Honest to goodness, I realized, am I going to say this? Yeah, I'm going to say it.
You're going to say it. Do it.
No, very recently, how the new movement crumbled and the fallout was born out of its ashes? Well, when we were all talking about the wrongs that we had been done to us, each individually in different ways,
God,
it was a lot of it was that kind of idea. The idea of making groups. This group was the best because of X reason. And then this group was okay, so they get this much opportunity.
No, fuck
and
all
we
that.
talked about when we all, like, none of us knew that was there until we started confessing to each other the things that we felt had been done to us. And then when we were like, it was like, I was the one who he gave this opportunity to when you lost blank. And it was like, what? That was... why? And it's like, this happened, And it was all this puppet shit. And it was just, and it was like a person decided that these people were going to get all the opportunities and these people weren't. And so they were going to get them in this position and then ask them. It's almost like, I've been watching some prison shows and I'm like, it's some prison shit where it's here, let me give you something. And then it's like, by the way, you owe me this because I gave you. Yeah. It's like, wait.
What the fuck? That's not real. That's not
actual.
Your transactional bullshit.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
So there's that, and I feel like, thankfully, and I'm glad that your experience now is that it's a friendlier place, and I feel like this last removal of negativity from this side of the community, I think, will make it even more positive.
I saw a show there. I saw Fuck This Week right after the marathon that I did, and I got to say the vibe there was great. It felt different. It felt real, like clean and washed. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, you are purified in the blood of the Lamb.
Yeah.
No, I went to the show and I was like, I can't wait to play this stage. I can't wait to get on this stage.
I feel like when stuff went down, because what happened was...
I've played there before, but I can't wait to play this stage. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's better now because it was built out of the love of all of the theaters.
Yeah.
Like, when things started to go down, there were a few of us that were like, what's going to happen? And people from every other theater came to us to help, to support, to
I remember
give
you were
stuff.
doing your sketch show at the Hideout one night, like a weird time slot, but still a spot to do it and to keep the audience coming.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and
awesome.
I talked to Roy and was like, is there any way I could do this? I've prepped this whole show, and now I don't want to do it on this stage, and yet I don't know what's happening. So Roy was very helpful.
This kind of shit would never have happened in the past. A theater owner would never have bent backwards for you in the past. Yeah. Here, never. And I want to say something that I keyed on when you were talking about like the grouping and the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for me to say this because I'm coming to find this out at my age. Improv's really stupid. And anybody who thinks, and sketch too, it's all fucking really dumb.
Yeah.
I look at it and I don't understand why in the fucking world people pay to see this shit. I really do. So the minute you start thinking that you're in a hierarchy of somebody or better than somebody at this, remember, you're just doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
You're cutting carrots that aren't there, asshole.
Yeah.
Like, you're also, you're being a dog right now because it was called for. You're doing the same shit. And you were where that person was, too. So get over your fucking bullshit. Yeah. It's all dumb. It's real fucking dumb. If I ever had a class that I would teach, and I thought about doing it, I would call it Forget What You Know. I'd just say, forget what you know.
Yeah.
Just fucking get up there without any preconceived notion of what you are, who you are, and just fucking be on stage with that person in that environment.
Yeah, you gotta drop your ego.
And remember, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's really fucking dumb. I mean... some of the shit that comes out of my mouth when I'm on stage and people laugh at it, I'm like, what the fuck? Why are they laughing at that? That's terrible what I just said. But, you know, it's the tension and stuff. I'm really touched by this recently, the Hannah Gadsby Nanette special. Have you seen this? My God. Comedy, yes, but also a great dissection and indictment of comedy. I thought, what a good show, what a great presentation, and so moving. And I started thinking about the shit that I do on stage as a Mexican. You know, for years I've done this voice, hey, you know, that kind of shit, and people love it. They fucking eat it up.
Sure.
Of course, because I'm the Roadrunner, or not the Roadrunner, I'm Speedy Gonzalez. That's that shit I was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, and it's when she was talking about it, I mean, I was like, God damn, man, I'm a man also, and I have a better chance at getting through all this shit. But as a Mexican, I totally feel what she's talking about. Like, that whole marginalization and the whole, like, putting on the fucking makeup and dancing for me, you know?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's real tough. But I love that we were talking about inclusion earlier and, like, the different theaters and how they're working to make people feel more included. I get, we kind of hit on it a little bit, but yeah, I love all these troops that are coming up. And it all kind of started with Shades of Brown way back in the day. About 9 years ago, Shades of Brown got together. They came to me and asked me if I would coach them through Andy Crouch. He was like, this group of Latinos want to get together and do some improv, but I'm not the guy who should coach them. I was like, sure. Yeah, you're not. I love you, Andy, but you're not. And he sent him my way. He and I'm dear friends with all of them, and I play with them pretty frequently actually now. And then you see other troops come like Escándalo, which is basically doing, and I love Escándalo. I thought it was a great show. I got to perform in it for the marathon. Excellent people. I love everybody. I have nothing bad to say about Escándalo, but it's the same format that Shades of Brown was doing about 7 years ago. Sure. I came up with it, telenovela format. I didn't come up with the telenovela, but doing a live telenovela. Sure. And I'm glad they're getting credit for it. That's good. It's happening. And Latinats, you know, are killing. And you've got Yaoi Asian. Is that what it's called? Yep. Yeah, Yaoi Asian that's now killing. Sugar Water Purple, murdering. Like, that's an awful phrase. I wouldn't say sugar, water, purple. Doing well on stage. There.
Oh, that's so funny. I legitimately thought that there was another troupe called Murdering.
Murdering is amazing.
Murdering is such a good troupe. I was like, that sounds like a solid improv troupe name.
It's named our duo. Murdering.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Write
Murdering.
it down.
Free Fringe Thursday coming out. Murdering.
Oh my God,
that's terrible
so
marketing, but what the hell?
It is helpful to have that, there is more inclusion. People are trying to get out there.
Yeah.
I noticed I'm personally a part of 2 or 3 sort of women's groups on Facebook
Online,
and stuff that are, just there to support each other. I don't even know half these women, but sometimes I'm like sending them messages like, don't let them put you down. Like, it's interesting how that is. I was just talking to one of the girls that's in the neighborhood with me about how I'm, like, trying to find a new something. I feel like there needs to be something. And when you brought up Nanette, it made me think of it. Like, man. I feel like comedy could be
turn. Just
that.
Yeah.
In a way where it's, like, not just... And it's almost like, what's that guy's name? Oh, I'm so sorry that I don't remember your name. You're so wonderful. There's a gentleman that did a stand-up comedy thing that's like 3 microphones.
Oh, yeah. Neil Brennan.
Thank you. Because he's wonderful.
Brilliant.
I love him. I like it because I like the mix of like, I'm going to tell a joke, then I'm going to get really serious.
So cool.
Then I'm going to show you the structure. Well, no, because like one of them were like one-liners. So it was like, and then stand-up, and then heartfelt stuff. And it was great because for me, I'm like the reason why I like sketch is, and also why I like teaching sketch is because I'm a structure whore. So like I love to see the format of something. So when he does the one-liners, I'm so satisfied by that.
So nice.
And so it's like, that's for me, that relieves the tension of the, he tells some serious story and then he does a one-liner and it's like, oh.
I watched that with my 13-year-old because he and I watch a lot of stand-up together. He likes comedy, but we were watching that and he got the concept of the 3 mics. I caught him once when he walked over to the 3rd mic, to the serious mic. My son goes, oh, one time. He goes, oh. He was like, because he was like, God damn it. He was telling jokes and now he's like, oh, we're going to get into it. Like, it's really well done. If you can get through a 13-year-old like that and make him like kind of,
like, what's he gonna say?
What's he gonna talk about? It's got to be bad. Oh no!
But like the fact that he was like hanging on it, like it was like I'm interested in what you have to say. I know it's gonna be terrible.
That's compelling, and it's because it was different.
Yeah,
and he's playing your emotions a little bit there, but in a healthy way, I think, and in an artistic way.
But there's a lot of roughness in the world right now, and I feel like especially with various like. Speaking out movements, when groups are standing up for themselves, when people are saying, I have a voice, I need to be listened to, I think it's important for the entertainment that we are building to have both the tension break and the tension build. Like, let me tell you about this terrible thing that happened. And then let me tell you a quick joke to release it, which is real life, kind of.
Sure.
But it also allows us, both as artists and as audience, to receive the bad and good news together.
Right.
It's like you can hear, oh my God, what a terrible thing. Like I love all kinds of people, and whenever I hear a story like Hannah Gadsby telling the story about feeling marginalized or about getting beat up, it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart for a human being to have to go through that and to deal with it. And I'm always thankful that I'm watching a person who has found their way through it to be able to communicate it with me.
Well, even she says she hasn't. She's trying now.
Sure.
Like to figure it all out. Even like after all of that and getting to a point where she can talk about all this. And I think we might find more of a trend in comedy, quote unquote, in storytelling.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest. I've been dipping my toe in it, like looking at it and watching it and thinking about it. It's fun. I mean, like I'm going to Snap Judgment tomorrow night, and seeing that, and it's in an interesting way to tell a story. I know it sounds stupid because it's storytelling, but
no.
But yeah, I mean, like I think storytelling's a safer environment than stand-up's looked at because stand-up has such a bad rap right now. Just with the, because stand-up has been known. I mean, we're such cynics that nothing's funny to us anymore unless it's just awful. You know what I mean?
Well, not to mention the fact that
there's a really interesting film critic. What's his name? Armand White, I think is his name.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this guy?
No.
He's known as the world's most hated critic because he does not like anything. He fucking hates everything that comes out.
I mean, his job is critic.
Except things like the Three Stooges reboot by the Farrelly brothers. Because he feels like film is entirely too cynical now. Like, we've gotten to a point where we need something out of film that's, like, awful. You know, we have to feel bad or we have to feel this. He's like, why can't we just go back to the way things were? And this is an African-American man saying this. He's like, why can't we just go back to a simpler time when things were simple on film? And just have, fun. And
sure.
I get that to some extent. Now, he does like certain films that are serious, obviously, but he generally hates everything that people like. And I find myself falling into that category a lot as a person. Mm-hmm. In the past, for sure, I would close myself off of things, This is all part of my 40-year-old awakening. It's just that, I would put barriers up about things like, let's just go as simple as broccoli. I'd say, I fucking hate broccoli. Mm-hmm. That's not true. I've eaten broccoli. I've tolerated it. I don't prefer broccoli.
Yeah.
Is what you say. Instead of using these hard words like that, I was that guy for the longest time. Very bitter, though. And I'm trying to be better about it. And I think this community has helped with that. Like I said to you earlier, I don't know if it'll come out, but I have a lot of 30-year-old friends now.
Sure.
And it's something interesting to me to watch their energy and to feed off of it and to to hang out with them. They include me and it's great. And it's something that I don't think you see from our generation as much. We were more of a compartmentalized generation than this generation, even though they have more labels, I think. But we were definitely more insulated, I think. It's like you stay with your people, we stay with our people. They said the Rat Pack or the Brat Pack kind of thing. The Breakfast Club. You've got the geeks, the fancy prom queen. You've got the jock, the bad kid, and the weirdo. Mm-hmm. That's what we as our generation kind of fell into. Whereas now you've got in every group, you've got the prom queen, the jock, the weirdo, the bad guy, and the geek, and they love each other, and it's weird. It's weird to watch, and it's cool to watch, and it shows on stage with a lot of these cats. Mm-hmm. They're up there, and they're just loving each other. There's a group called Crossroads right now. They just started. You know the names in it. It's a bunch of really good people. They're young though, and they're my buddies. I always tease them that I'm a member of their troupe, even though I'm not. I'm like, I'll be at rehearsal, guys. But their energy on stage, they do this thing that kind of like Echo Lake does, if you've ever seen them, where they just kind of take a word and there's a lot of chanting and weird shit that goes on. Like if you and I are talking, you and I are talking, and 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 it just goes off on this thing. And Crossroads has 8 people on stage doing this. And they get into it and they get going, and it's such a cool energy to watch. And it feels inclusive because everybody looks different, and everybody is different, and everybody's bringing something different. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen even a few years ago.
Yeah.
Even 10 years ago.
I think there is certainly a celebration of diversity, especially because there have been a lot of, great people that have argued for it. Like people that have come out and said, I don't know what your problem is. You don't just want people that have the same background as you. You don't just want people who went to the same school or are the same age as you. You don't see the world unless you have various perspectives to go through.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of improv, and certainly the beauty of the way I feel like most of the AIC is teaching improv now, is it helps increase your empathy.
Yeah.
It helps develop your openness to anything. All of the schools have a different specific philosophy, but they're all built on this idea of welcoming whatever happens and being open to the world around us. Yeah. And so I think that helps to help, create these groups where it's they're going to let down their walls and not be afraid to be friends with people who have a different background or, are different, have less or more money than they do and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So hopefully that continues.
I hope it does too. Because honestly, if you want to get deep about it, here we go. I found out about a year and a half ago that I have cirrhosis of the liver, and I stopped drinking, and I'm a lot healthier now. I was at a if you go 0 through 4 on the scale of liver troubles, I was like at a 3.5. So whereas a 4 is like, this guy needs a liver tomorrow, I was like, get this guy on the list. I'm now at a 0.5.
Great.
I owe a lot of things to that. I owe, my own resolve and stuff, but everybody around has been so supportive. They took, if you want to know the honest truth, this community's made me a better person. Whereas other things like formative family members and stuff like that couldn't. You know what I mean? I think it's made me step back from myself and look at what I've done in my life and where I can go, with it, and what my kids can do. And they took they took this guy, an old alcoholic who was overweight, very funny guy, but didn't have any friends in town again, really, that were in the community. They took me in. And then now I've got this younger group that's even taken me in further. I'm deep now. Yeah. I'm a part of the cult. I used to be on the outskirts of it for about 2 years ago. I was like, fuck y'all. This stuff, give me a fucking break with your bullshit. You don't love each other that much.
Sure.
Boy, was I wrong. People love each other in this community hard. And I'm texting people constantly and talking to people constantly just to check in with folks. And they're checking on me. That's a special thing. That's not just like art. You know what I mean? That's people. There's a difference. And they say every good movement starts with art. Every good strong movement has started with art or with women and that kind of thing. And little groups have done it. And maybe, just maybe, because we're all nicer people, that feeds out a little bit into the world. And maybe, just maybe, it affects our audiences. And maybe, just maybe, they don't have to have a Trump joke. And maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to be about my dick. And maybe, just maybe, one day it won't have to be about my skin.
Yeah.
But until that day, we'll just keep plugging along and being nice to each other.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Talking about Austin in this way and the sort of positive bent of it, I think it's, you've turned me around on having children being raised here. We were talking about how...
Don't do it!
Earlier, no. I'm moving away right now. No. Earlier you were talking about how, perhaps the adult world calls to them a bit much.
Yeah.
But, your world is the adult world too.
Right.
And the world that they see is the one that you show them.
And they want
if your kind friends are taking care of you and having your back, then what a wonderful thing to hope for as a kid, to say, man, when I'm an adult, I hope I have really good friends that call me when I'm sick and take care of me and stuff like that. So
yeah, and they do. That's the thing, they do.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to see from afar. I noticed that my eldest especially is very in tune with his friends.
Yeah.
There was a kid that went missing in our neighborhood, a kid that has autism, and they were just spread out the net. They all were talking constantly. Have you seen him? Have you seen what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. Tell somebody if you've seen him. And it was all over the place. They found the kid in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because of the kids. They told him where he was. But yeah, of course, I say this about my kids, about wanting to shelter them from Austin and make them babies forever because I love them forever, and not let them grow up. But then I'm the asshole who also, like I said before, takes them to concerts and stuff like that. And I'll take my middle kid to an improv festival in Kansas City with us because he likes barbecue, and then he ends up performing. Okay, he ended up doing his first improv show up there and killing it, just doing great. And then now we did this Excused Absence Festival as a family with our 20 years and counting
so
format. It was so good. And then I'll be honest, a couple hours ago I submitted this for Anything Live in September.
I love it.
So and my 2 older sons want to start a duo called Thing 1 and Thing 2. They want to do something about hating each other on stage.
That's so fun.
I'm like, I don't know if it's healthy, but it sounds funny.
As long as you work together to talk about hating each other, you're fine.
They're good at hating each other together.
Sure.
Let me tell you, that's the one thing they do well together. Those two.
My concern about raising kids in Austin is actually that the rest of the world is way worse. Like that they're gonna grow up and be like gentle snowflakes that like just are able to eat tacos at every meal and people are nice to them. And
this is such a thing for me, worrying that I've given my children too much. Yeah, like they don't understand strife at all. Yeah, that's a good thing, I guess. But then I notice sometimes that they don't appreciate things. Sometimes I call them out hard on it too. Yeah, like I'm like they'll complain about like not getting dessert or something if we're out eating. I'm like, oh well, we're not having dessert, but how was that trip to New York? Did you enjoy Avenue Q on Broadway? Was that fun? Yeah. Was that direct flight to New York, okay for you in the upgraded seats? Are you okay, bud? How's that dessert now? Is that okay? Can we skip it this time? Yeah. Yeah, we can skip it. That's good.
I think every life has strife at some point. Sometimes it's during your childhood and sometimes it's later.
I hope they never do.
It's just a coping. No, they will. It'll happen. Life is life. You know what I mean?
Not if I can help it.
It's just a coping, like, how do you cope? And so it's like, okay, the city's really nice. No one's ever mean to them. I'm going to have to tell them. Turns out, guys, people are mean
everywhere else.
I'm originally from Boston, and I always talk about how people are mean. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm going to make sure to bring him there and just walk around like South Station in Boston and get yelled at by everyone for nothing. Yeah. Yeah. And then he's like, why is everyone so mean? I'm like, this is what the rest of the world is like. This is life. Let's go back to Austin.
Yeah. I do love that city, Boston. Oh, I dig it.
It's beautiful, but it's also terrible in so many ways.
It's awful in a lot of... Well, you can say that about almost any city.
Sure.
Austin's terrible.
Austin included, for sure.
The gentrification here is fucking terrible. Like, the fact that the people, all the blacks and Mexicans have moved out to Del Valle and fucking Bastrop and shit. They've just been pushed out. These families from, like, 40, 50 years have lived in some of these houses, and they're just like, bye. We're pricing you out on taxes. You can't live here anymore. So they move out, and now they're like, there's this rural community of like African Americans and Mexicans out there that work here but live out there. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's so stupid.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird things that go on.
Whitewash the shit out of the city. And I mean, I'm half white, so I'm not like a white hater or anything like that, but fuck, man, white people did some bad shit.
Sure.
And it's just, this is not a good thing for Austin, I don't think. You can't it's the one thing I noticed about Portland too. There weren't many people of color, I was just in Portland, so, and we're compared, and they're very similar cities. Have you been to Portland?
No.
Oh, great city, beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very, very Austin.
Nice.
Austin with huge trees, and probably even nicer people. Like I said earlier, like people just get out of bed, they throw shit on, they just walk around, they look fine. It's like, how the hell do you do that? How the hell do you look so cool just waking up? Right. Like, ugh, you're awful.
Yeah, you were just in Portland. What were you performing when you were there?
I went up to see a band initially, but I fell in love with some people that I met at the Alaska Festival and the Azif Festival. Some people from Portland, Aiden Nepom and Eric Nepom. Aiden, who was here for a while. She worked with Marilyn Works. Aiden, she was known as Kirshner for a while, but she's Nepom now. And then Betsy Green and Bill Cernansky. B&B are probably the best duo I've ever seen in my life. They're fantastic. If you get a chance to see them on the circuit, go for it, because they're fucking unbelievably sharp. They're really good. Anyway, I fell in love with them, and I found out my buddy was going up to see Ween up in Portland, and I was like, I've never been to Portland. I want to go see my friends. Let's go. So I booked a ticket, went, ended up seeing Ween 2 nights in a row because they were so good. But Great. Seeing them, and I performed at the Curious Comedy Theater up there at this thing called Open Court. It's kind of like an open jam thing. You sign up, and then groups of like certain amount go up one at a time and do like 10 minutes. It's a mashup basically. But I came from I got off the plane, got in a lift. Mark Tyndall from England, who's now living in Portland, signed me up. I got to the theater, put my bags backstage, performed about 5 minutes later, and then went to the dispensary and got some weed immediately because it was like time. It was like almost time for them to close. Yeah. So I was just hustling. Do a show, get the weed. Good, we're good.
Yeah. First day done.
And then I performed Sunday night at the Brody Theater in a thing called Diabolical Experiments, which is very similar to the Free Fringe. and that it's kind of a push together of people doing one thing one time, and that was a blast. I got to see Joe Bill, which is nice. I always get to see him. He's a good guy, and a lot of friends up there. It was a really, really special weekend. It was nice. I do remember most of it.
Do you travel a lot to do performances other places, or did you just happen upon performing?
I just happened on it this time. I was like, hey, I'm gonna come see y'all, and they're like, let's get you on stage. I'm like, that's a very Austin thing. Like that's gonna happen. I kind of expected them to do it, but I wasn't like, I'd sit in the audience gladly and watch, but I was like, can I play? Can I take Portland off the old map?
Yeah.
I forget your initial question. I'm sorry.
Do you travel a lot?
Oh, travel,
to perform?
Yeah. I go to about. I try to go to about 2 or 3 festivals a year.
Yeah.
I always go to the Oklahoma Festival because they were the first first festival to ever book Zarzamora in a festival. So I'm very loyal to them. And they're great people. If they watch us not get into the festival this year, but always travel there. And then we try to go to several places. We've been to Providence. We've been to. Well, the troupe as a whole has been to Denver, Albuquerque, Vegas twice, Kansas City. We've been to Finland. Finland, yeah. We went to the Finland festival. That was interesting. That was a weird one for me. I'd never been to Europe before, and I found out a very, very close friend of mine passed away like the day before I left. Like one of my best friends died the day before I was supposed to leave, and I wasn't gonna go. I was like, I'm not fucking going. I can't do this. Keith's gone. No fucking way. And I thought to myself, well, I heard his voice kind of, if people say that, I heard him saying, get on the fucking plane, stupid. Just go fucking kill it, And I had 4 of the best shows of my life over there. I was miserable the entire time.
Sure.
I was not okay. It's so weird. I credit the last Daft Punk album for getting me through that trip. I don't know why, but I listened to it the entire time I was gone. I was only gone for like 72 hours. Like it was really quick trip. I was in Finland for all of 48, and I was traveling for almost a full day. So I didn't get to do much, and but I really wasn't in the mood to do much either. And I was heavier then, and it was hot because they were having a heat wave, but they don't have air conditioning. So I love the people over there. Finland's crazy. I mean, like they're super smart. They know like 6 languages, all of them. It's true because their language is so difficult. If you've ever looked at Finnish written out, it looks ridiculous. It's just like double A's and weird I things, and I mean, but it's very weird pronunciations too. It sounds like Russian and Spanish together. It's really weird. It's like like that kind of weird. Like I'm not saying a thing, obviously, but
you could have been saying anything.
I just said very important things, but no.
My Finnish
they're also smart and beautiful. They're all gorgeous people. Like they're just pretty. And it was always, they never spoke Finnish to me because it was pretty clear I was American because I was some fat Mexican guy walking down the street. They're like, oh, you're not from here.
Wearing an old Navy shirt with an American flag on it.
Well, I don't know if the sparklers tipped me off. Like I had like a full on and the bass drum on my back, boom boom boom.
Maybe the parade was too much. I'm just saying
the one-man parade I kept walking through as different things.
Oh my god, I totally knew one of those guys.
A parade guy?
Parades, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, totally one-man parades in my past.
Yeah, nice. So we try to go to about 2-3 festivals a year. I've got some new duos and stuff that I'm going to start submitting, like I'm submitting to Alaska again. I think we're going to submit the family trip to Alaska and then take a cruise.
Yeah.
After. Have you been to Juneau yet?
No.
Great festival. I highly recommend it, although I don't want to recommend it because he only has so many slots and I want 1 or 2. But but it's really a beautiful...
Is that the one you said As If Festival?
Yeah, the As If Festival. It's a magical place. Eric Caldwell runs a hell of a festival.
Yeah.
They take good care of you there.
That's fun.
And I'm probably submitting to Amsterdam this year. It looks like.
Which festival's there?
Improv.
Okay.
Improv festival. That thing's coming up soon, and I'm very excited about several of my new troops, of my new duos and stuff. But probably the one that I'm most excited for right now, because we have a big show coming up, is an evening with Tyler and Chuy featuring Tosin, which is Tyler Gross and Tosin Awafeso and I, and it's I don't even know how to really tell you what we do. I know that's what band people say, like, well, we got like a we're kind of a grunge edge with soul influences and funk, but we do it's musical improv essentially, but we do a hard soul edge, and we're doing the last night of Out of Bounds this year, and that should be a lot of fun. We're opening for Geico, I guess, and that should be cool.
Cool. What night are you performing? It's called An Evening With?
An Evening with Tyler and Chuy featuring Tosin. We're performing Monday night of the festival, the last night, and we are the last show, so that should be fun. I'm very excited about it. I hope. Well, I mean, it's usually the pretty busy show, which is nice. So seeing this format in front of a bunch of people is gonna be. I mean, we played in front of good houses, but a bunch of people, it's gonna be wild to see what happens. And we got some surprises, hopefully.
Yeah.
In store, we're gonna go nuts. It's gonna be buck wild.
So, just as a wrap up, a final question.
We're gonna stop talking. I want to talk to you forever.
I know, it's fun. I'm having a great time.
I too.
I'm just also thinking about the listeners.
Well, fuck them.
my regular.
Fuck them.
No.
I mean, I love you. I mean, I love you. Listen a lot.
It's so good.
They're like, I was listening until that asshole came on.
No, I have a weird. They know I have a weird up and down relationship with the audience. We were talking about. Earlier, the idea of like control stuff and the like ego issues that you have. Like sometimes when an audience doesn't get the like flow of a sketch show, I get so butthurt about it. I'm sorry, I hate that phrase.
I don't mind it still. It's true. It kind of hurts if you're not ready for something in your butt.
It does. So the idea
exercise,
being,
folks.
But the idea being that now I've lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. People getting upset about you being so controlling about sketch.
Egos. The way that people are... I have trouble with the audience because sometimes I get mad at them for not like reacting the way that I want them to in that moment, right?
Absolutely.
And I need to drop my ego and let what happens happen and just be part of that sort of situation.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure why I brought that up, but my final question to you is...
Probably because of my enormous ego.
No, it had to do... No, we were gonna... I was trying to outro, and then you were like, "Let's talk forever. Forget the audience."
Right, I screwed up. I'm sorry.
I love the audience. No, you're fine. I was just following now in my brain. I was like, "Wait, how did we get there?" We yelled at the audience. Then I said, "Well, they know I have a troubled relationship with them, so they're okay with it.
Right.
I'm working through it.
Right.
And what I wanted to ask you is, what is the way that you maintain doing theater in your life? How do you keep it going? You have a family, you have I don't know, I'm assuming you also have a day job of some kind.
No, I'm actually retired now. My day job is volunteering.
Great.
I work a lot at my son's school with the PTA. I'm the committee chair for the Arts and Education Committee this year in PTA, so I'm gonna be hollering at some of my artist friends to come and perform and teach kids at my son's school. Totally. Probably for about 5 years. So get ready if you want a little. I've got a budget, so I've got some money to pass people's way.
So how do you keep going with it? How do you keep it in your life?
How do I keep going? I'm very lucky in that my wife is very supportive. She makes the money in the house. I'm not gonna lie. We have a very if you talk about the typical husband-wife relationship, we are absolutely opposite in that respect, and that she's always been kind of the money manager, the pragmatic one, the one that's like more, I'm going to make a career and make a living for us, blah, blah, blah. And I'm we love each other. Isn't it great being a family? Let me get the groceries. I'll cook. You know, like that kind of thing. Yeah. We're very, very opposite that way. And I like that. I like the fact that we have that dynamic because I don't feel it's opposite for us. Yeah. It makes sense for us. So that being said, whereas my theater is concerned, I've just had so much support. My mom was a theater teacher, you know, and so it's not like I had money support, but people knew that this is what I was going to do forever. Like I told you early in the talk, I was like, you know, I was very pragmatic. I knew what I was going to do at a very early age, and I wasn't going to let anybody. Shit, my initial goal was SNL. And don't think that I don't still think if they called, I'd fucking be there.
Sure.
They want a 43-year-old, I'm the guy. But
if they start hiring in their 40s, there's a number of us that are into it. Yeah,
we just high-fived, motherfuckers, and taking over SNL. We're all in the back writing.
40-something.
That's all we'd be doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have a lot of support from my family, and I don't sleep. A lot.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm not big. I mean, I have a lot of energy, I guess, and that's good. Even for somebody with a bad liver, like, I still kind of amaze my wife and some other friends of mine. They're like, dude, how the fuck do you find the energy to keep going? How do you find? And the time is really the issue, not the energy. When we went to New York this last time, and my wife was real pissed at me because we landed, left, went to see a show, dinner, another show after that, bed. Like, it was maybe like cocktails, bed, you know, like that kind of thing. Not cocktail for me, but her.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, you know, I'm very rigid about, like, we got to get this fucking day filled, because you know what? I'm gonna miss something otherwise. I'm gonna miss something, and I don't want to miss anything. I want to be in on it. You know, the one thing I spent my life doing is running away from being in on the joke. I want to be in on the joke now.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get there, and I want to be as involved as possible. So, does it mean that in the future I might have to back off? Maybe, but it's actually looking like it's going to be better because my kids are getting involved. They're older now. My little guy's the only one that's good. I mean, we're going to have this weird 10-year-old by himself at the house because the two older ones are going to leave. That kid's going to be the most latchkey kid in the world, probably, because my wife and I are going to be like, woo! You know, it's time to leave. No, but you know, we'll have him.
All third children are little. It's fine. They'll take care of themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They really do. And I don't know what's going to happen when the older ones leave. Like, I really, you know, who knows? We could move cities or move, like, downtown and just get a little apartment. Let him live down there with us, you know? He can live the cosmopolitan Austin lifestyle. Whatever. We'll see. It's all up in the fucking air is the one thing that I know.
Yeah.
More than anything. And if you can juggle it, you're doing really good. Even if you can juggle, like, 3 balls. Don't try 6 if you can't. But...
yeah, just do what you can.
Just do what you can.
Do your own thing.
Do your thing.
And that's the other thing, too. I hear what you're saying about being super busy, and there's a part of me that, like, loves being super busy. It's like my thing. But because I have the baby right now, I really have to slow it down because my household is the opposite of yours in that my husband goes out and travels for work and makes all the money, and I sit at home with the baby, and it's really, like, lessened my ability to go out and do things and have improv troops, and, like, I don't do as much, but I'm trying to be as creative as I can and not compare myself to other people in a way that is, like, unhealthy.
That's the shit.
Yeah.
But also what you got to remember, too, is the great thing about this community is you can come back.
Yeah, exactly.
I did.
Exactly.
You know, we're here for you.
Yeah.
We'll be waiting for Amy to come back and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this. She's back. She's ready to go full force. So there's some other people right now that are taking time off for babies. Like, it just happens. The Sweet Lambs have done it. Ryan Hill's doing it kind of right now. You know, like, just these are people who played a lot and performed a lot and did things. You can still be creative. Control your sketch show from afar. Make them come to rehearsals at your house and do real quiet nap time rehearsals.
That's so funny. I actually
you
ending
cool
the
shit
sketch
out of that,
show,
I bet.
to be honest.
Oh, you're ending it?
Yeah, I've been doing it for 8 years,
Wow.
and November will be the 8th anniversary of it, but I decided that would be the last one.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I feel okay about it. At first, I felt like I was quitting, and then I was like, okay, how about you just say 8 years is pretty good.
That's a great run.
And then just try to be something else, because, you know, I want to be focused on writing that I can do at my house while, you know, he's around versus having to wrangle 7 or 8 people to accomplish something that's away from my house. So it's like, yeah, I'm, you know, fine. I'm just there. I'm in such adjustment mode. And so when I'm doing these interviews, I'm like getting all like, oh my God, your life sounds so cool.
Oh.
And I have to be like, okay, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, let me tell you.
You know, 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh, that sounds so nice what you're doing right now. So I'm like, it's all perspective. It's all perspective.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
It's all that. You got to remember, my shit stinks. Just so you know. It is not as rosy as it looks from the outside. It can be real tough. It can be real tough.
We have a sweet, positive outlook, and it has been a wonderful opportunity to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
So great to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your stories
anytime
and everything with the audience.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me. Good. You're doing a great service to this bullshit community.
Edie, Dan, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me. I really appreciate you taking the time. Amy.
for talking to me. And I know you're going to be so busy with Out of Bounds stuff, so we'll chat, and then you can have some breakfast tacos if you haven't already, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great.
So both of you guys are actively involved in the improv scene of both Los Angeles and other cities.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, individually, how did you guys get started in improv?
I got started in improv officially in Austin.
Great.
And I started doing stuff at the Hideout. It was at the very beginning of improv in Austin. And there was a guy named Sean Hill who put an ad in, can't remember if I saw it in the Chronicle or what, but it was saying like auditions for improv group. And it was like a theater sports group. And yeah, I went. I was doing shows with the Rude Mechs. And so yeah, I was doing both things. I was doing plays with the Rude Mechs and doing improv with those guys at the Hideout. And I knew, I guess like, I don't know, I knew a little bit into it that I was moving to LA. And at some point during my chunk of time with doing improv at the Hideout, and we also did improv other places because the Hideout was like not all the way built.
Yeah.
Dan and this other guy, Brian Lohman, came to teach my group.
Nice.
In Austin. Yeah, which was crazy. And then in LA, I do improv with our group, Impro Theater, which Dan's the AD of, and I'm a groundling, so I do improv there too.
Oh, great. I have 1,000 questions from all of those.
Yeah,
Let's start with, so you started doing improv at the Hideout before it was built. Were you in Austin during the like Monks Night Out at
with Brentley and
all that crowd?
Yeah. Every
Cool.
now and then I would go, like rarely, but a couple of times I would go and like guest with them and do stuff at Monk's Night Out or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the super fun byproducts of this podcast is getting the full and complete history of Austin Improv.
Yeah.
And every time I meet somebody who's part of it, I'm all like, okay, which part of the beginning were you part of? Because now I've gotten all the way back to like, okay, I'm the person who put the nail in the Hideout. Okay, great. Tell me what happened before that.
Right.
Like, so you were at the Velveeta Room, which doesn't do improv at all anymore.
Yeah, crazy.
So tell me what that was like. Who ran it? What was going on? And I love that all those places still exist. And,
Me too.
And that they're, doing lots of different kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's been an interesting, from I've been in Austin for 9 years. And just starting to learn what happened and all the development. Because now it's 5 theaters.
Yeah.
There's thousands of improvisers
it's a
in town.
full-on great scene.
It is a wild scene. Yeah, it is really great. Cool. That's so exciting in the early days of the Hideout. So you knew straight out of college you were going to do theater. You were like, or film. You were like, I'm heading to LA. Let's just learn some improv before I head out.
Yeah. I had been, like informally doing improv my whole life. I just didn't know exactly what that was that I was doing. And at my college, I went to Texas State and I majored in, acting, but we didn't have like an improv program as part of it. At one point there was this weird thing where oh god, what's her name? John and Joan Cusack's sister.
Anne?
Yeah, Anne Cusack. Came to Texas State and taught one day of like sort of an improv class.
Fun.
Yeah, I don't remember why. She must have been friends with G.W. Bailey, who taught there. Anyway, that was like it. And then there was one weird like Texas State kind of talent show thing where a bunch of us were like, let's do something like an improv show. And we didn't really know what we were doing, but we did that. And that was fun. And then, not until I got to Austin was it like full on shows for audiences. And that's when I legit started doing improv.
Yeah.
I forgot what the question was.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I dig it. When you mentioned that Dan taught you a class, is that when you guys met in where we're now friends, let's do improv together? Or did you start dating immediately?
No. We,
it was 2 years before we started.
Yeah. I knew I was moving and, Dan had a girlfriend at the time and was in town with her. And I was super young, but he thought I was like 17 years old. So we both liked each other, but it didn't occur to each other as like, yeah, I'm going to get with that. Like we just were like, it was totally a friend thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I knew I was moving, and so I was friends with them, and I knew I was going to take class with their group and stuff like that. But, yeah, not until a little bit into my stay into LA after he had broken up did we start like hanging out after shows and stuff and going, oh, I like this guy. But I will say, and
after I found out she wasn't 17.
Right.
Yeah, I was not 17.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, thank God. You're like, you look so young. That is good for your career, but whoa, way better for me dating you.
And I will say, while you were teaching the class, I've told you this, I had kept having this weird feeling.
That you knew me from a past life.
Just that I knew you. Yeah. Like, I just kept going, why? I know that guy. Like, I really know that guy, and I don't know why. And I was like, is it because I've seen him on some TV show or a commercial? And it wasn't that. I was like, I just weirdly know him.
And that class was upstairs, someplace on 6th Street.
Yeah.
It was up in some empty restaurant or something
In my memory, it was the upstairs at the Hideout, but that's not right.
It's not. I taught in the Hideout when they were still gutting it from when it was the jewelry store.
Right.
Yeah.
During not before Out of Bounds, it was a Big Stinkin' Improv.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
festival.
When I was like first doing stuff with those guys, Mike DeLonzo and Shayna and all those guys, Craig, that was like one of the first Big Stinkins. Or second, or how many were there altogether? 2 or 3?
2 or 3. I can't remember.
It might have been the second one, but yeah, because I can remember like I had just started being friends with Mike DeLonzo because we were doing improv together, and I called him and I was like, "Want to go around to some of this stuff at this festival together?" And like that sealed our friendship, and we were major pals from then on.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I had started with Bay Area Theater Sports a long time ago and been part of that. And then I moved to LA and helped start Los Angeles Theater Sports, which has since become Improv Theater over the years. We went from an improv group short form thing into doing full length improvised plays. Which
now that's all we do is full length plays, improvise. Yeah.
But I had done a workshop with Keith Johnstone in San Francisco, and Sean Hill was part of it. And actually, Ed Carter, who did the Big Stinkin' festivals, was also part of it. So Sean was like, I'm thinking about starting this in Austin. You should come down and teach. And Brian Aloman and I came down and taught. And that's where I first met Edie. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I literally taught in the Hideout downstairs in what is now the coffee shop.
Right.
And there were boards on the ground and dust, and they hadn't done anything yet. It had just been gutted from being the jewelry store for all those years.
We did a couple of shows while you guys were there too.
Yeah, we did shows at the State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a maestro somewhere else.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
So
how many years had you been teaching when you came here to teach that workshop?
I'd been teaching for 10 years at that point. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got into improv, you got into theater sports in the Bay Area, and then you were like, this is it. I love it.
Yeah. And
Signed, sealed, delivered.
I got to be sort of Johnny Appleseed. I helped Ventura Theater Sports. I helped San Diego Theater Sports, Palm Springs Theater Sports, Austin. I had gone to drama school in England, and I'd come back to San Francisco, and all the roles that I could get in professional theater, it seemed like were being taken by MFA students at ACT, which is the big rep house in San Francisco.
Right.
And so I was not getting any work. I was getting some commercial work and things like that. And a woman who was directing me in a play said, well, they're doing this thing, theater sports. This woman from Seattle is coming down, Rebecca Stockley, who's basically the godmother of West Coast theater sports. And I took the class and was hooked immediately. It was 2 weekend workshops, and we did a show on the Monday following the second weekend and sold it out because there was all these people in San Francisco professional improvisers who were 10, 15, 20 years older than me, or professional comics and actors who suddenly were like, oh, this is what we should all be doing. This is fun. This is not bar prov. And so it was an immediate hit. And I kind of felt like, oh, I found what I should be doing, and never looked back. And
same here. I just never stopped doing it.
Yeah.
It just was always exactly the right thing.
And it's led to so much. Your question before we started recording about where stuff has led you and how have you used improv? I have a book coming out next month.
Yeah, you do.
Next month.
God.
Well, I'm so excited.
I'm just laughing at your pointer finger.
Yeah.
I love it.
Called Life Unscripted, that I wrote with an old theater sports student of mine who's a psychiatrist, psychologist. And he had been using stuff that I taught him way back in the day with guys at the VA who suffered from PTSD, and we've been talking about it for years. Anyway, so we've taken a lot of narrative improv and put it into a book about, basically a self-help book about how to use improv as a life tool. So that's a huge, gigantic arc from doing theater sports with Rebecca Stockley in San Francisco, and all these points during my life, improv has spurred me on to the next thing, including meeting and marrying my wife.
Your voice got weird.
It was love. It was love. It was love tone. It was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did bring you all sorts of wonderful things.
Yeah.
That's so great. And what an interesting thing that you found a way to turn it into ways to help other people. I mean, I feel like improv for sure is one of those things that like is so therapeutic, can help people just learn how to speak to each other. I mean, every corporate workshop I've ever taught, it's like, I don't realize that people exist in the world that aren't creative, because that's all I hang out with.
Yeah.
And then I meet these people in a room, like 40 people, and I'm all like, oh, you haven't done something creative in years, have you?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're going to have a good time. And then they finally shake off all of the weird adulthood, and they're like, oh, I can have a nice time. And I'm like, enjoy the rest of your event or whatever. Because I'm usually like the kickoff of some sort of like, group team building thing. And,
Yeah.
Totally. It's crazy when we do things like that, like you're talking about, and like just in general, I don't know, in classes and in improv in general, I think I've been thinking about this a lot the last year and a half or 2 years. I think we don't talk enough about, the sort of root thing of getting rid of the fear when you start, because I think it's so prevalent, even in people who've been doing it forever. There's this weird fear of like, not even weird, it's just human. But the reason they're all afraid in a corporate thing is because they don't want to be embarrassed, or they think they're going to look dumb. And I think we don't talk enough about what happens if the worst thing happens.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
You're not going to die in here.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so maybe you say something, everyone thinks you're stupid. The next second, they won't. P.S., they're never going to think that, because everyone's only thinking about themselves.
Right.
And like, yeah, but it's so interesting that we have to fight through that thing as like full-grown adults.
One of the things in the book, there's a moment, I think Jeff came up with this actually, I'm going to give him credit for it, but where when people feel embarrassed, like getting somebody's name wrong, if I get somebody's name wrong, and that sort of panic of, I know this person forever and I got their name wrong. And in the book, Jeff wrote, the first thing to ask yourself is anyone dead? The idea that it's you made a mistake, it's fine, move on. And the terrific thing, improv t-shirt, mistakes are gifts, mistakes are an opportunity, learn from them, as opposed to that fear. But you said something great, which I've started talking about in classes in the last couple of years, which is that the fear is there, and we're not working to remove the fear. We're using the fear. It's fine. It's good. It's good to have fear and acknowledge it and be okay with it.
I think two things. I think if you can get to a whiteboard place of like totally wiping the whiteboard and telling your brain like, oh, thanks so much, but not now. And get to I don't know if we can curse on this.
Curse. Go ahead.
For me, a big, like, the sweet spot mindset for almost all of life is fuck it.
Uh-huh.
In a really fun way. There's nothing negative in this fuck it. Of just like, we don't know how this is going to end up. Let's see what happens. I think that works for everything in life. And when you're in a true fuck it, there's absolute fearlessness. So I'm for that. And I'm also for bravery, which is what you're saying of like, okay, I'm scared to death and I'm going to just, there's nothing to do but walk through this fire in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to walk through it. That's almost like like it forces fearlessness through bravery. It's something slightly different than what you were saying though.
Okay.
What were you saying?
I was just saying that you maybe not make.
Oh, you were
partner.
saying work with the fear and like have it and know you're having it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge
it as opposed to trying to push it down, which I think sometimes causes people anxiety because they try and press the fear down or remove the fear, as opposed to going, I have some anxiety around this or I have some fear around this, and continue to move forward.
Totally, because I think sometimes just acknowledging it can make it go away.
Yeah.
Totally. It's all different ways to try to make it go away. Yeah.
It's like anxiety. I mean, one of the things when you fight anxiety, you make it worse, as opposed to acknowledging, oh, I'm anxious about this, and just that sort of, I don't know, mindfulness about it.
That I weirdly, that show, I'm doing 3 shows while I'm here, but the one I'm doing tomorrow night by myself, always like, I have to fight my brain for days and days leading up to it. And yeah, I see that guy flying around. It's okay.
I was like, that's what I'm embarrassed about right now.
No, please don't be. But I've even found sometimes if I can just go like, there's no controlling this. I don't know if this is going to be good or not. Yeah, people paid, but the only way that for me it's going to be good is if I can get to a place of not controlling it at all and just knowing like, opening up enough to know like, well, some river is going to be existing out there and I just need to jump in it. I cannot plan anything right now that will make it good. I can't try to be good. That's the only thing that will make it good to me. And sometimes the only way I can get to that is before that show to go, you don't know when you're going to die. You could die tonight. So just have fun. Like I have to get that extreme sometimes and go like, we don't have control of any of this. Just let it rip tonight.
Yeah.
But
I can get a little extreme that way. Yeah, it makes a little bit, it's like, don't worry about it. There are so many other crazier things that could happen. Right. Sometimes just thinking of all the crazy things that could, like,
it's
not
helpful.
that could happen in the, like, I'm in a stage, I'm pretty safe.
Right.
It's like things that aren't going to happen. Like, it's not going to burn down.
Right.
This thing isn't going to happen. Like, all sorts of things where it's like, it's going to be all right.
Yep.
Like,
no matter what.
These people are nice.
Yeah.
You know.
And we have no control of the world. It might blow up tomorrow. So you might as well have a party tonight while you're out there because you got this chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, how many people even allow themselves improv? Like, the beauty of, I guess the 3 of us in this room is that we've seen the light that is improv. Like, we're getting to enjoy our lives through the lens of this freeing art form. But so many people just don't. They don't know that it's there. They don't know that they can do it. Even I have friends that are actors that are just never done improv. And I'm always like, take a class, go do it. You know, they're all...
It's a game changer.
Well, there's people, I mean, we have a lot of people, because Improv Theater in LA has a school, and we have a lot of people in our school who are not actors, and they're not seeking to be, you know, book commercial work or be in films or plays. They're taking improv because it's their version of the bowling league or book club. It's a 1 week, 1 night out of the week where they can go and laugh and tell stories and create theater and have a good time. And it's really, it's more of that taking care of oneself, and it's just about having fun rather than trying to accomplish, trying to be on a sitcom or something like that.
But as an actor and a writer, like you're saying with your friends who've never done improv, I can't fathom like, I don't know. It was such a game changer and a life changer for me. I can't fathom having an approach to acting that doesn't involve improv, or writing that doesn't involve improv. Because like you're saying, it just opens up everything.
And I've talked about this before, that in my humble opinion, I think improv should be a requirement in junior high and high school. That kids should take it, that improv should be a prime subject that everybody takes. And I think in Canada, I think they have, improv clubs in high schools. Maybe you can letter in improv.
Yeah, you can major in it.
Yeah.
Canada's got an intense, like, lifetime improv scene.
Yeah. So that idea of the kids who maybe don't play sports being able to get the same sort of socializing that people get when they play team sports, and just the ability to have fun and learn how to make mistakes at an early age, because basically that's what you do when you're growing up, is make mistakes and be okay with making mistakes and make that part of the process of maturing.
You know, it's interesting. This summer I taught 2 comedy camps, and I teach sketch comedy in the camp, so I'm not doing improv, but I had one group that was 12 and 13 year olds, and then one group that was 14 through 16. And it was so crazy, that dividing line, that moment between 12 and 13. Because I thought, okay, in my memory of it, junior high was a harder thing. So that's 12 and 13. I thought that's when you're real, oh God, my life. But from these groups, I realized that the 12 and 13 year olds were freer. They were like open to ideas, and they were into it. And I mean, they have dark little senses of humor for sure, but they get it, and they're not afraid to do it. And don't get me wrong. It's a summer camp for theater kids. So they're all kind of theater kids. Yeah. It's like the 12 and 13s were so free, and I explained comedy, like how to write a scene to them, and they just got it right away. Whereas when I talked to the older ones, it took 3 or 4 days in the camp just to get past the like weird self-consciousness thing, the like, we're a bunch of strangers in a room together, we need to work with each other kind of thing, before we could actually get to the work. And I gave them a bunch of like sample how to write for a couple of days before they got the concept. So it like took the older kids just a little bit longer, because their sort of hormonal moments were taking away the purity of their, improv brain in their head. Yeah. I used to, when I taught level 1 to adults, I used to tell them, when you were a kid, you had a perfect improv brain. And then the hormones came in and ruined it for you. And now we're here to shake off those hormones and to remind you that you're still fun and that you can do this kind of thing. So it was never more apparent to me than this summer when I taught that class. And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because they were so, like, 12 and 13s were just like, yep, got it, no problem. I'm going to write something. And they'd write me something, and I'd be like, this is exactly right. Or like, this is a perfect joke. There's even a callback. How do you guys know that? Like, and then the 14, 15-year-olds, they'd just be like, but what if this happened?
Right.
Sure, maybe it does. I don't know. Try it. Write it down, So it's interesting how you mentioned that you think that junior high and high school kids should be taught it. Is there a specific idea or a specific part of improv you think that could draw from them what they need to have as adults?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's a certain amount of, first of all, in improv, you take care of the other person. You're a service industry of help for the other person, make your partner look good. This is old Keith Johnstone.
Your focus is on them.
Your focus is on them, which, especially when you have that teenage thing of, oh my God, everything is about me and everything is wrong. The idea of just putting your focus on the other person, and because in adults improvising, when adults who have anxiety put their attention on the other person, they stop thinking about themselves. They stop having that anxiety. So
they're immediately good.
Yeah, and because they're just giving. And if kids were taught that and at an early age, the idea of being of service and of being generous and of yes-anding other people, all of these things which are not only good for creating a good narrative improv scene, but also just good manners, good support. It's there's a kindness that improvisers have.
Yeah.
that and a grace to improvisers. Most improvisers.
And a game, like a gameness, like an up for having fun and up for riffing, and there's an up for it attitude.
Because enthusiasm, the idea of over accepting, it's that old game, It's Tuesday, of over accepting, the idea of having a group of kids together and they're all being generous, they're all yes-anding each other, they're all enthusiastic, they're all playing to a positive outcome. I think it helps to get rid of that operating from a place of fear, as opposed, because if once, like a good ensemble starts to trust each other and takes care of each other when somebody, falls down or whatever it is in the scene. And to your thing about how the hormones mess things up, there's a great Keith Johnstone quote, which is that adults are basically atrophied children. We've forgotten how to be like that. And improv goes a long way for adults, whether they're, not actors or engineers or wherever they are, to be able to remember that life should be about play,
I think it'd be awesome too to start learning when you're that young, that the sort of failing forward mentality, and that there's no such thing as doing it right. I think that's something that is hard for people even now when they start improv as adults, is they think there's a right way to do it. And there, in art in general, there's no right way. And I think you'd learn that more quickly if you started doing it when you were a kid and were just allowed to fail over and over and over and over. And knowing, like, there isn't a math to it. Like, if I do this and I do this and I do this, I'll be doing good improv,
Yeah.
So I wonder, you guys have both been involved in, like, quote unquote Hollywood, and I can't imagine that's a gentle, lovely place where everyone's trying to help each other, right? So I wonder how these, like, kind aspects, taking care of each other, enthusiasm, like working collaboratively, how does that stuff help you when you are doing other projects? Because there seems to be an element of competition to that. There does seem to be a certain school of thought that thinks there is a right way to do improv. So how do you guys deal with, because there's a couple, there's a lot of schools out there, and some of them are like, we're going to get you on SNL, or like, we're going to make sure that you're in a movie, whatever. And it's like, okay, don't promise these things.
Right. Yeah, please don't.
But since you've been on both sides of it, what do you think as far as, like, your improv, what you learned in improv, what you know about it, and then
both of us are chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I have a big take on that. I do think that improv is, for me, what made LA quickly a great city, and because at first you get there and you're like, holy fuck, this is big. I have 2 friends here. I'm living on their couch. Then we'll get a place in a month and a half, and like, what is this? Where do I go? And then when I started doing class with Dan's group, and when I started doing stuff at the Groundlings, improv for me quickly made a smaller world in this sort of giant, overwhelming world, and made the giant, overwhelming world seem fun and doable. So in that way, and that all comes from, like, the mindset of improv, like we're talking about, and the give of it. And I'm not saying, like, oh, it's so easy to be an actor in LA. I'm not saying, like, improv makes it perfect and easy. But I will say, like, maybe every TV and film job I've gotten had something to do with what I've learned through improv, and my improv brain being loose enough to play with it in the moment and to make it my own thing, instead of thinking, oh, there's a right way to do this. They want this to be like this. They want me to look like this. Improv is the only reason I've ever known to go, you know what, I'm me. This is how I do it. And I improvise a little bit in this to show you what I do. And if you want that, that's cool. And if you don't hire me.
Right.
And that, so I would say it has infused every single, like, in quotes, Hollywood thing I've done without a doubt. And then you get on cool jobs where, not only is the script awesome, but they're up for like things morphing a little in the moment. And oh God,
sorry,
it's okay. He didn't get on me, did he?
No, he's
he did not.
he's over in the corner now.
Sorry. Let me try to spray. Oh, God. No,
No.
get out of here. He's coming for you.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Where did it go?
Did he go out?
No. I saw him head towards the light, and then I lost him looking in the light. That's how he knows. Where did he go?
Okay. I'm cool to come back in.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm going to grab this, and then if he comes, I'll
Yeah,
just
there
grab
you
him.
go. That's smart.
Just knock him down.
Let's see if I can see anything. I'm gonna just shoot spray in a random location.
I bet he'll stay back there.
Super brave with the low situation.
I think he's like probably fully on drugs from getting sprayed earlier.
Oh, I wonder, is it the same guy? Hopefully.
I just assumed.
Yeah, I mean, probably. You're probably right.
It's all good, Dan.
Okay.
I was like, how can I?
Sorry for the weird, like, whoa!
No, I felt the same way. I was like, oh shit, he's coming back. Alright. Still leaving that door open so he goes out. Jesus Christ. Oh boy.
So,
Remember how we were talking about embarrassment?
Anyway.
but I've been chomping at the bit to answer that question.
Tell me about what you think.
Well, the thing is, Hollywood in air quotes, there's horrible people and there's wonderful people, just like any other business or any other city for that matter. And it drives me crazy when the negative aspects of Los Angeles are highlighted, because there's, like any place, there's, as Edie said, there's great communities and you build communities. In the improv community, even though there are many schools and many schools of thought, and some people who, this is the only way to do this. I think by and large, people understand and people move between these different styles of doing improv and whatever. And we've always said, go take class elsewhere, go take an acting class, go take a dance class, live. But the business itself actually is pretty, at least my experience, is pretty warm and friendly for the most part, because everybody is being creative together. Occasionally, you have production things where people are, very set in their ways or obsessed with being in control. But I directed two hybrid television shows. One was actually a network show, the other was cable. But
By hybrid, you mean improvised style?
Yeah, it was like Curb Your Enthusiasm. There was a show before Modern Family called Sons and Daughters, which was, they had a writing staff that basically wrote outlines, and then they had a terrific cast that would improvise. And I got hired because I'd been a sitcom writer and I'd also directed improv, and I was an improviser. And it was fantastic because it was a Hollywood experience, big budget television show, with all these people getting to improvise. And it was warm and fuzzy and wonderful. And even the suits, for the most part, and by suits I mean, people in charge who are not creative, right, were wonderful and understood what was going on, and it was terrific. So I think, like a good improv scene, the more you are of service, the more second circle you are. We talk a lot about Patsy Rodenberg, who's a Shakespeare teacher, has a book called The Second Circle, which is about how your circles of engagement, first circle being sort of shut off and
yeah.
siloed. Third circle being sort of maybe a stereotypical Hollywood person who's talking like a aerosol can past you.
Or a beginning improviser, like, hey guys, I'm throwing out my energy. I'm not really getting anything back. I'm just aerosol spray canning it.
Right. As opposed to second circle, which is actually being here in the room with you and talking to you. And when you are that way, for the most part, in my experience in the biz, people recognize that, and it's like taking, a thorn out of the lion's paw or whatever. People actually recognize you as another human, and then it becomes a real conversation.
You said something.
I think that was a long sort of babbling way of saying, I think we have found our way in the business using improv.
Yeah. And you said something that made me think about, if I think about the sort of hard and or frustrating parts of being in LA or whatever, it's never like when you're actually doing stuff with other people. I've never experienced any of that stuff of like, people are sharks or super weird or super competitive. But it can be very existentially confusing and or bleak in between jobs. And that's why I think doing improv with people you love doing it with and creating your own stuff, and it helps fill those weird. If I think about anything about LA or probably anywhere being that sort of feeling you were talking about at the beginning when we were putting Hollywood in quotes, it's those weird in-betweens where you're like, holy fuck, what do I do next? What am I supposed to do? When you're actually in the mix on something, it's usually a bunch of cool people.
And it's also a way not only to keep a healthy community going, but it's a way for you to practice your craft and continue, get on stage and do stuff and feel creative. I think the business is very difficult. It's a challenge because especially now, with the advent of it, it used to be that you could do 3 or 4 commercials a year and make a really good living. And that's not the case anymore. So the middle class actor is kind of hosed. So the business has changed. You have to kind of, have a portfolio of talent. You have to do other things rather, because I think if somebody is just an actor, there are people who are just an actor and they make a living, but they're in the minority, I would think. I think most actors in LA are doing something else or finding other ways to make a living. And we've been very lucky that improv has continually given us, corporate work, everything from training to writing books, and it continues
You've done way more corporate stuff than I have.
Yeah,
but the corporate stuff has been super helpful for your bag of tricks. Whereas I would say TV stuff has been an important part of my bag of tricks. Yeah,
that's your career. You have a great television career.
Well, I think we both got very cool careers going, but it's just it is that interesting thing of like, what else are you doing with your improv? And like, some people are doing like a ton of corporate stuff and or this, and some people are doing TV stuff, and it is interesting how it octopus arms out into like
we just
other things.
We just did a gig this week for Disney, and we've done this. Stephen Kieran, who has been to Out of Bounds before and is a member of Improv Theater, he and I started doing this thing at DreamWorks 4 or 5 years ago called the Living Storyboard, where we go in and the writers and the animators and the layout artists and the producers will watch us improvise beats rather than spending weeks and weeks working it out on a board. They can say, oh, make that character a little meaner, make that character a little gruffer.
Do a scene where they're just meeting for the first time and this guy's been at the job longer, or,
so
then we'll just do it.
It's part of the evolution of improv that now we're going in and helping, basically doing punch up on our feet so that to save the animators and the writers time to be able to experiment with different, flow charts of the narrative. Where is it going to go here? Where's it going to go there? So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And
it's really fun.
And I'm sure that will progress to a certain point where maybe we do that type of thing in streaming, where the audience is saying that and we're adjusting things and from an online community or something like that. But the point being is that it is constantly evolving because everybody improvises all the time and it applies to almost every aspect of your life. And it's obviously done, it's been what we do. I don't know where I just kind of lost my thread.
I feel like you guys, the thing that I've learned from what you've told me just now has a lot to do with, I think, perspective. Like, if you're looking at what you're doing as, everything can be having a good time, and if everybody's working together, it can be enjoyable.
Totally.
As opposed to, there are people that are super focused on competition or I'm the best or that kind of thing, but they're probably not improvisers, or probably not continuing with it. They took 101 and that was it.
Right.
And then they were like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that anymore.
Like, you don't progress in improv if that's how you're thinking.
Right.
The way you're the best in improv is if you're just giving it all up.
Yeah.
And assuming you have an endless well of creativity and ideas and help for other people and just always giving all of it.
Yeah. It's good to know that, to be honest with you, I worry sometimes about, improv in towns where there's a lot of jobs like in acting and stuff, because like I have friends, for instance, who just moved to LA and they went and took classes at UCB and they had a tough time because it felt very competitive and it felt like, they're creating how to do this in a way that's like, do you know how to write a sitcom? Because you're gonna, and it's like, okay, maybe you could just be involved in the art of it for a minute,
right,
and then afterwards figure out how to use it in whatever way that you want to.
I do think in LA it's super important, dare I say imperative, to go around and see shows and feel the vibe at a few shows at the different places and go from there as to where you want to take classes, because there are such different focuses at every place.
I like what you mean about feel the vibe. When I was searching for colleges, I made my parents take me to all of them because I had to feel the vibe.
Yeah, you just got to see.
Did it, but,
does this feel like something I like?
Yeah, I want to be in this room. What's this room like?
If you come to stuff at Improv Theater and you see something we're doing at the Broad stage, you go, oh, cool, they're making up a play. They're not going for laughs. This is funny, but nobody's trying to be funny. No one's saying jokes. Okay, it's not my idea of old school improv. Okay, interesting. You come to the Groundlings, you see a sketch show on a Friday or Saturday night. You see the emphasis is all on character. Or you come to the Thursday night show and you see that it's scenes with no games. You go, oh, that's all improv, but no games. And then you go see something at UCB and it's a different take. Second City's a different take. And I think it's so important to sit in that room and go, oh, this is the vibe I've liked since I was a kid. I'll do this one.
Yeah.
There is a thing which a negative aspect of improv schools in my mind is that myopia that this is some places, not all, but some places, that this is the way to do it and this is the only way to do it. And
it's an inherent fallacy,
especially when you're talking about an art form that is infinite.
Right.
It's like, no, you can't put it in a box. It doesn't believe in boxes. It's going to do what it's going to do. And the idea of saying, well, if you do this, and you do this, then you're going to do that. And it's not a recipe. And
well, it's regressive. At a certain point, there's a wall with that. You have to know it's going to evolve. And,
I used to, when I was really young, I would complain to friends up in San Francisco when I was in LA about, competing improv groups or whatever when I was 26, 27. And And I think Rebecca actually said to me, more improv is more improv. And it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And rather than sort of get sharks and jets about it, that you should just go, yeah, more improv is more improv. And being open, like a nice thing happened when I.O. closed in Los Angeles. Not that the closing was a nice thing, but when it closed, the improv community writ large went, hey, if you need a place to play, if you want a place to study, and people offered discounts, and they offered stage time, and took care of each other. And that I would love to have more of that in the scene. And we've it was really nice. And we've we have a school which has people who take class at UCB and Groundlings and other places, but there's also a lot of people who've gotten out of BFA or MFA programs who are actors who've moved to LA and quickly understand that almost every commercial audition they go to, they're going to be asked to improvise. Mm-hmm. And that so much of stuff, if you're reading for some 2-line thing on a television show, you're going to have to improvise probably. So that there's also this whole other constituency of actors who want to learn to improvise and
which is cool, but then it becomes it can get weird, like you're saying your friends experienced. They probably, since they were just starting there, they probably had to take beginning levels, because that's what you have to do everywhere almost. And there's so many people who are doing that thing you're saying, but they're doing it because someone told them some version of, oh, if you want to get this, you have to do this. Yeah. So it's not a purist mindset. It's a like, oh, right. Well, my agent or whoever told me I got to take some improv so I can know how to do this other thing. Uh-huh. And so people are in these classes sometimes figuring out that it's not for them, or like it doesn't fit their mindset. And I think probably the first couple of beginning levels, almost everywhere, maybe with improv theater as the exception, will include like fresh off the bus people who are panicked and like gripping inside and like, I'm gonna be funny in here, everyone's gonna watch me be funny.
Oh my god.
and it can, like, yeah, like you're saying, your friend's experience, it can be like jarring and like take your breath away, and you kind of have to, I think, sometimes fight through those feelings in a first level or even a second level sometimes, and go, oh, okay, now everyone wants to be here. Now it's not all like, I was told to come here by my mom's friend and it'll help me get a job. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you guys were talking about earlier with fear. It's like a way to help you deal with fear. And if only people would take the time to get through it, like getting through the full bottle of medication, or going to all of the trips to the therapist you need to go to. Right. Like, you need to go through, complete it, so that then you can process it and use it in the way that, the agent meant, or the mom's friend meant. Or
to realize maybe this wasn't for you just because your agent told you, get some improv in there and then you can get an acting job.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, maybe it wasn't what you should be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Poor little guy.
I was like, there's a door outside if you'd like to take it.
Oh, I think it's done now.
Somehow he lived.
I know, that's amazing.
He did?
He was alive. When he dropped him, he like started crawling away, and I was like, wow. You're very smooth, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, good job.
As soon as I saw you touch it, I was like, oh, goodness. I was like, he's going to kill that wasp. Oh, boy. It's funny, too, because, like, I'll totally cut out all the wasp moments, but it's nice, though. Like, it's such a human thing to have this moment with you guys.
I love it.
Like, it's just
I'm thinking maybe leave her in.
It's just funny how that is. Oh, man. Speaking of fear, yeah. So, may I change the subject, because I had a question. I've interviewed people that have taken classes all sorts of different places, but I've never talked to anybody who have done the groundlings. So I'd love to know what your experiences of that was. Like, how does that work? And what I've heard is there's a level of competition there. So tell me what your experience was doing improv there and how it was.
Cool. So at the groundlings, you have to start in the very first level. I had done improv in Austin, like I was telling you. So that was my first question, was like, what can I skip?
Sure.
How many classes can I skip so I can just start paying for that third one or whatever, you know? But that's not how it works there. And so you start in basic, and I will say I had to, for most of my basic classes, because I'd been doing improv for a bit, I would have to try to wipe my brain, just partly because there was a lot of energy in there of like, we're in an improv class, you know, which I no part of me will say like, I was never like that. I was fully like that. When I was first started doing shows in Austin, I was out of my mind. Like, the way I picture myself in my head is like all angles and like screaming and like too blue too often, you know what I mean? And like, so nothing against anyone who was bringing that energy to the beginning groundlings class, but I would have to go, okay, kind of forget the stuff you know and remember like you have to do these rules now because you're relearning the rules of yes and you know, basic space work and labeling quickly and making sure you know the who, what, where fast. And I had gotten to a place already where like those rules were a little looser in my head, and I had to get back to where they were very black and white, which was challenging. But anyway, you do those first two levels, and in the first two levels, it's all improv. But you are getting into some character stuff in the intermediate class, which is the second one. And then from now there's another level called advanced improv. But when I was doing it there, you go next into the writing lab, which is that's the ultimate focus of groundlings, is if you want to do sketch shows and characters. If characters is your emphasis with sketch, that's what the groundlings is all about. And if you like characters in improv, it's great there too. But then the third level, you start writing, and you're writing, you know, monologues and scenes with other people to do a show at the end of your class. And then there's another level after that called advanced lab, where it's a bit longer and you do 2 shows through it. And then after those 2 shows, you get voted on as to whether or not you made it into the Sunday company, which is the last level of the school. And then every 6 months while you're in the Sunday company, you get voted on as to whether you stay in the Sunday company.
Sure.
And if you do the Sunday company for a year and a half is the usual number. At the end of your year and a half, your senior 6 months, you get voted on as to whether or not you're a groundling. And then if you get in the main company, you stay in that as long as you want, and then you give up your spot when you need to. Eventually, but a lot of us stay in for years and years and years, which I've been in for a long time. And unless you have something that's making you unable to do your requirements of how many shows you need to do and how many shows you need to watch and how many things you need to be at, you can stay a groundling. At a certain point, you know, if you're filming a show out of town and it's gonna eat the whole year, like there's certain points where you go like, I guess I gotta become an alumni now. Yeah. As for the competition thing at groundlings, I would say it's interesting because it is obviously a very competitive structure in that not many people go through that process and become a groundling. Mm-hmm. But I will say it never on the inside, it never felt creepy. Of like, we're fighting each other, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it never felt like peer on peer. You hear stories, and I don't know if it's just lore, that there were times in the Groundlings. I mean, it's been around since 1974. So you hear about like times when it was like that. But I just have never experienced it. And yes, of course, there are people all over LA who are mad at the place, the Groundlings, because, you know, for whatever reasons, at whatever level, they couldn't come back anymore. At whatever level, they didn't get enough votes to go to the next level or whatever.
Who's voting? Who's the vote?
The main company has to vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's, at any given time, there can be up to 30 of us.
So the main company just, like, watches the recital show, and then they're like, yes, yes, no, yes, no?
Yeah, we watch all of them. So if it's an advanced lab, you have to have seen both of their shows, and you have to be very informed in order to vote. Yeah. And then it's, there's discussions and stuff, but it is never, when I first became a Groundling, I was utterly shocked at how non-political it is. Because that's the stuff that people like to say of like, nah, it's political. It's like who you're friends with, blah, blah, blah. And it has nothing to do with it. We talk about the work we saw for a minute, and then everyone votes anonymously. And it is all based on the work. And it's, obviously, it's a bunch of humans. It's totally subjective. It's like looking at that and going, do I like that or not? Do I like that picture of Jimi Hendrix? And does it speak to me? Does it land on me? And then it's like, does the majority feel that way or not? And you don't know how anyone else voted. And that part's awful, though. Most of us hate voting because it feels terrible.
Is the voting just like, is this person working hard within the construct of the lessons? Or is it like, are they representing the Groundlings the way we want to be represented?
It's that. There are so many talented people who didn't become a Groundling. Some of my best friends are like through the roof talented. And I think it comes down to whoever the Groundlings are at the time decide whether or not it fits what we do there. It's very specific. And that's the thing people sometimes forget when they're when they're initially upset about not getting in or whatever. Like, tons of people didn't get in, are on sitcoms and doing movies and doing all kinds of stuff. And it's just like, does it fit this weird thing where we do sketches that mostly revolve around characters?
Yeah.
It's like, you may be an awesome, like, high concept sketch writer, but if you can't do a character, probably this isn't the place for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so specific. And I think that's what people forget as you get enmeshed and you're like, I want this. You kind of forget, like, oh, right. I came here kind of knowing, like, that's what they go for. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends who, like, didn't even make it through the first level. Like, they made them redo the first level. Yep. And they were very upset about that.
Everyone I know.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Like, I would say everyone I know has redone some level.
Yeah.
Most multiple. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's almost like the same reticence to wanting to start in level 1 at a new place after you've taken classes. It's
totally.
Like, okay, I get it. You think you're something. Like, you want to move up, but, you gotta go back to basics.
We can't tell if you got this thing, and this thing from the syllabus, so do it again.
Yeah.
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 We've had some really good experienced improvisers come to Impro to take class. And people with 20 years experience, and they don't have to do the basics class, but they have to start at core 1 because the stuff that we're teaching is very different.
Yeah, it's just a different way to learn.
And therefore, when we have grandfathered somebody in, it sometimes bites you in the butt because then there's not logic gaps, there's
information
learning
gaps,
information gaps. in what they know. And it's a pain in the ass for them too, because then they're like, what are you talking about? Because the language is different.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's like bonding gaps too, meaning like this group of people spent time together. You haven't spent any time here. So the like trust isn't there for you. So you need to take the level 1 to find people to develop trust with.
That makes total sense.
It also says a lot about somebody that if they do have that amount of experience and they come in and they go, yeah, okay, I'm down, put me in core 1. And they're willing to learn and they're willing to, like, that says
it speaks
so
volumes.
much about who they are as a performer.
Yeah, there's 5 improv theaters in town.
Yeah.
Here in Austin. And there is one person who's taken every class at everything.
Oh my God.
When he finished, they had a big ceremony for him.
Oh my
and
God.
gave him all sorts of, like, they did a show where people from every theater came and did scenes with him.
Yeah.
Because he's the only one out of all of us that has studied everything in this town.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, he's the king of improv, you know.
That's
So,
awesome.
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah. So, and there's other people trying to.
Yeah.
Though there have been some changes, and so now it's like, wait, there's more to learn. It's like there could be more to learn. Who knows?
Right.
We're creating more programs now. But tell me what improv. So did you start improv? I know you're the founder of it. What you're talking about, how the style is different. Tell me about the style of taking classes at improv.
Well, because what we do is different. We do full length improvised plays with sets and costumes and music. We just did a 10-month residency at the Broad Stage in Santa Monica, where we did Sondheim, horror, noir, Jane Austen, Chekhov, Twilight Zone, Dorothy Parker, Tennessee Williams, Shakespeare, and fairy tales.
A different one every month.
And each one of those has a set. There's full-on costumes. We have set designer. We have a costume designer. We have lighting designer. It's
a music improviser.
Yeah. We did a
lighting
Christmas show 2 years ago, the Improv Theater's 1966 Holiday Variety Spectacular, which was like one of those sort of Judy Garland, Andy Williams 60s Christmas shows, when we did it with a 5-piece jazz band and with vibes and everything. And so we're trying, in fact, we've tried to sort of say we're a theater company. We're not an improv troupe. Not that there's anything wrong with being an improv troupe, but we're trying to do theater. And so how that is reflected in the ethic of the school is the school, like, we have people doing improvised Lovecraft and improvised Star Trek Next Generation and improvised
teen rom-com.
Someone right now there's a show that I think is starting next week, which is improvised Hemingway. So we're trying to sort of roll up our intellectual sleeves and dig deep in literary forms and as well as television film forms, but we're really trying to tell good stories. And in the Chekhov and in Tennessee Williams and a number of the other genres, it may be that somebody dies and there may be tears and we are playing for truth. And we had 2 goals when we started improv theater, when we sort of stopped being LA Theater Sports per se. When we reformed, because we've been theater sports for years, and we reformed, and the 2 things we wanted to do were we wanted to do shows where we knew nobody in the audience, where it wasn't an improviser's audience, because improvisers laugh at stuff that improvisers laugh at, as opposed to real laughs, which are from a real audience. Not that improvisers.
And we didn't want to have to
invite.
We didn't want to have to.
We didn't want to do another show where it's dependent on all of us to invite our friends in order for there to be a show. We wanted to do a show for people who go to see theater.
And that is our audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second thing was we didn't want to be wanky. We didn't want to be self-indulgent. We all had gone to drama school. We were all serious actors. We made a living. We all made a living being actors. We wanted to use those skills that our parents had paid money for when we went off to, college to learn how to act. We wanted to apply those and marry that to all this improv we've been doing, which is how improv theater got started, was The idea of let's do theater that's not written, and we'll write a different play every night in front of the audience.
So as a result, we'll have people come, like in our runs we did before the Broad stage, we would do like, you know, a 6-week one or a 4-week one or something. And there would be 5 or 6 audience members who would come like 8, 9, 10 times to the run because they wanted to see a different show every time.
Yeah. In fact, we were, when we were talking to different theaters around LA about working with them, partnering with them, we said, well, we have a very different relationship with our audience because every show is different. Like, what do you mean? I said, well, when you put on Oklahoma, people come and see it once and they go, I've seen Oklahoma. People come to our shows, they'll come 6, 7. We had one of our super fans came to 14 out of 30 shows because she loved it. And
it's different every time.
And we had one guy, I think Doug said, oh, it's better than staying at home. You know, he just loved.
Great endorsement.
Well, but he that was his snide endorsement, but he loved it. He loved coming every night, knowing that he was going to see a completely different play, and he was going to be moved or he was going to laugh, and so that idea of partnering with the audience, the idea that the audience has a different relationship with us because they're watching it being created, they know, and then they forget from time to time. It's so funny because in straight theater and regular theater, you're trying to make it seem as if you're improvising. And in improvised theater, to a certain extent, you're making it seem like it was written. Yeah. And then these moments, obviously, where it's obviously improvised, pop up, and people are like, oh, that's right, I'm watching an improv show. So improv, the school, is really about teaching good acting, teaching going for truth, and using improv as a way, narrative improv, to create narrative improv.
That's what I was going to say. Essentially, it's a narrative improv school.
Yeah. And we do that by using genre, because what better way to talk about narrative than using Shakespeare or Chekhov? We have all of this. I mean, Shakespeare's company improvised a great deal, so it's just extending a lot of the stuff that Shakespeare did to teach narrative improv. Yeah.
I always think about Shakespeare as the guy. Like, I think about him, just some schmo, hanging around, writing stuff. Oh, I got something good for you. Hold on, let me see. And then, like, now how we talk about him, like, he's, like, this amazing. I can just imagine some random dude that I know who writes movies or whatever. Yes. And I'm all like, that guy? That's the guy? Right. You know, you just talking about it, I was all like, yeah, we elevate that guy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they did improv. They were just like playing for the crowd, and it was just like, hey, you get a penny? Get on in here. Yeah. You want to stand in front of me while I talk? I'll figure it out. Yeah, that's super fun. I like that a lot. Now your bio indicates an excessive amount of study with Keith Johnstone. Is that how you got to deciding to develop this? You enjoyed working with him so much and inspired you that you were like, okay, I'm going to make up my own theater to work on similar ideas?
Well, it came from, I had studied with him at BATS in San Francisco way back when. And then I would go up there pretty regularly. They'd bring him to San Francisco a lot, and I'd go and study with him there. We also used to do these really small sort of commune-esque retreats with him along the coast, a place called Turtle Creek, where there'd be improvisers from Japan, but a very small group of Japanese improvisers and a few Northern California improvisers, and we just get him for a week and work with him for a week and just kind of see where it went. And we'd bring him down to Los Angeles. LA Theater Sports brought him down a bunch. But yeah, I've studied and been involved studying from him since 1986. And so when we got to the point where we wanted to create a theater, Floyd Van Buskirk, who actually had been Rebecca Stockley's teacher from Seattle, he was a member of LA Theater Sports, and we were like, well, what should we call our new theater? Since all of us had a Keith Johnstone background, impro was the thing that popped up. And in fact, I'm producing a documentary about him that we're going to begin shooting soon. Because he's still teaching at 86.
Yeah, we did some class with him 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dream, though, right? To be teaching improv when you're in your 80s.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
In fact, he came and saw us. We do a show. We've been workshopping the show for 2 years called Play Unscripted, where we've basically read lots of modern playwrights, everybody from like Christopher Durang to Yasmina Reza and Sarah Rule. And so we've been studying all of these sort of modern contemporary playwrights, and we did it at a festival at UC Irvine called the Global Improv Initiative. And he was teaching there. I taught there. Edie taught there. They dragged him to see our show because he doesn't go see improv anymore. He's just not really interested.
Sure.
I mean, you've seen 50 years of improv. Maybe it's time to call it a day. But
also, work and relaxation.
Yeah.
He's been working all day doing it. He's going to watch a horror film to relax.
So they brought him to see us because they were going to give him an award after our show. And so afterwards, I was really shocked to see him, and I went out in the audience. I said, Keith, you saw an improv show? And he's like, yes, Dan, I was asleep for most of it. And when I was awake, I couldn't hear anything. But I have some notes. And he proceeded, son of a bitch, to give pretty good notes about the physicality, because all he had was, when he was awake, is he could see what was going on. And he had a couple of good thoughts about our physicality, which were great. And I love him, and I thanked him for it.
You're like, first note, guys, project.
Yeah.
That's a big, important thing.
Seriously.
But it was so funny. I saw your show. I was asleep for most of it, and then I couldn't hear the rest of it, but I have some notes.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, but I mean, his ethic to begin with, which is terrific, which is, he's not a guru. He's the first person to say, I'm not a guru, and there are many ways to do this. And at any point you can say, fuck off, Keith. And when I first started studying with him, I found that amazing. It's like, it's not about me. It's about you taking what you want from this.
Yeah. And
as opposed to some sort of dictatorial, orthodoxy that you must do it this way and otherwise it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And that was, I mean, when I first started, I went, oh yeah, this is infinite. And so
it's giant ideas.
I've taken class with him for, all these many years, and I've probably done the exercise, what comes next, I don't know how many gazillions of times, because he teaches it a lot, and I learn something new every fucking time. Mm-hmm. There's something to be gleaned every time, which was not only a great lesson for me as a student, but it was a really good lesson for me as a teacher, because I'm constantly thinking, oh, I have to come up with something new. And I'm like, well, no, it's improvisational work. So you can do the same thing. It's going to be different every time, and stop worrying about.
Yes, just what comes next.
Yes.
It doesn't mean what is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's different. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how.
That was a tiny bit ESL too. What is different?
What is different?
So, just to sort of culminate all the things that we've talked about, I want to ask you both separately. But what do you think? Why do you stay in it? What about improv? So your Dan, your resume is very impressive, with thousands of places you've taught. You're doing millions of shows all the time. I imagine you don't sleep. There's just so much that you've done, and you're not 85 years old. So you're clearly very busy. What keeps you going? What keeps you motivated to do that kind of thing? And I'll direct a similar situation to you, Edie, in a moment.
Well,
do you want to think about it?
One, it's always different. It's always different. I don't go, somewhere at 9:00 and punch a clock every morning. My life is really varied and very different, and I get to interact with all sorts of people, from Disney animators to engineers at Cisco, and that's always interesting. I actually find the corporate work more interesting now than I did when I first started doing it, because I can see the light bulbs go off in people. Like, I taught the MBA program at UT here a couple of years, and that was amazing to be in a room with all of these brilliant people and watching them go ping, ping, and all this sort of energy in the room. So every time you do it, it's inspiring. I think a large part of it is I get to work with my wife. I get to work with my best friend. I get to work with Edie, and we've, worked together all the time, which is pretty cool for a married couple to actually get to work together and have fun. I think the main thing is that it continues to be inspiring, and I continue to be a student as well as a teacher. I continue to learn things. Every time I teach, I learn something. And I'm really interested in the next generation, like at Improv Theater. I'm really interested in the people that we have coming up and what they're doing and how they're seeing things and what ideas they have. And that's inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That seems like a wonderful way to spend your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. I like it so much so that I don't think I'll ever do anything else. So
why would you?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Good answer. And Edie, since your path involves some acting, and you're doing improv and you're teaching, but you're also performing in movies and television, how do you keep going when some of the work that you're doing is so different groups, different kind of stuff? What keeps you motivated?
I think that there's a through line that can happen when you're an improviser and when you really believe in all that comes with that. There's a through line that can infuse all of your work. And I don't know, I would say for years now, golly, I don't even know how many, I do usually between 2 and sometimes 2 to 6 live shows a week of improv. Well, sometimes it's the sketch show at Groundlings, if that's in the mix. But, yeah, I mean, I always do at least Thursday night every single week if I'm in town. It's usually 2 shows a week because I'll do something at improv as well. And I just feel like it's what keeps me right and like a person and happy. And like Dan was saying, I really dig that we like working together. I think that's so lucky that we can go out of town and do shows, and that's fun and awesome, and we can, work on a corporate thing like we just did, and it's fun, even though that job was challenging. It was fun. But like when improv was such a game changer and a life changer for me that it opened up everything for me. I was so shy as a little kid, that I improvised all the time for my parents and like my parents' friends, but not until and finally did some show in 7th grade and went, oh, I could be an actor for my job. But not until way later when I started doing improv did I lose all that, I don't know, tightness or fear or something. It opened things up for me in such a big way that's hard to articulate, that I can't fathom that I would ever stop doing it, because it's what makes me feel like me. It makes me feel like open to all the good stuff in the world. And if I'm away working on something, like the couple of things I've done recently, it's in the mix with the people I was working with. Like I went and did a thing on this movie in New Orleans, and they coming in, they wanted me to play around with it and like open it up as I did it and improvise. And the pilot that I was just working on in Charleston with McBride and those dudes that I did vice principals with, that's in the mix for them too. And so I just feel like the more I just let it go, it weirdly just infuses everything in a way that you don't even have to make happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just think improv can make your whole life better.
Yeah.
In every way. And it's not even like you have to go, how will I make improv make my life better in this way? It just will. If you let it just creep into your writing and into your relationships and into your friendships, it just will. I don't even know how I'm trying to say this. It's hard to articulate, but yeah.
Fun, good times.
Yeah, fun, good times. Thank you, Russian man.
You're still having fun, good times.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I know more than ever in the past couple of years that it's an allowing and an opening more than it is anything. And I feel that way in shows too, and like that's what I'm going toward in shows, is just allowing. Because I feel like when you allow it, and you can, especially if everyone on stage can get to a certain frequency on the radio dial, that it just, you can channel. Instead of thinking and trying, you can channel stuff. Yeah.
You guys are so cool. The like vibe that you have between the two of you, and also like the energy as you talk about improv is so positive and open, and it's just, it's very nice. And I wonder if you started out as nice, open people and came to improv, or if improv helped you open yourselves up in a way that enhanced your kindness in that way. And you don't necessarily have to answer that question. It just, the vibe from you both is just so like nice and wonderful. And for anyone who's listening that is like on the fence about which workshops to take or which shows to go to, hang out with these two because they're great. And the energy that you will feel, you'll be so renewed. It's been a wonderful conversation to talk to you guys about this. And I just, I feel like you guys have just done such a great job. I appreciate it. I told you like the vague idea of how the podcast works, and you're so, what you have given is so completely exactly what I would want to share with our audience. I thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, and the fact that you're bringing this positivity to the people everywhere you go and teach all over the world, and that you're here in Austin. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And
love coming here.
And just thank you so much for
being
part of the whole thing.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Cool. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why podcast.